Hello, greetings, everybody, and salutations, and welcome to After Dark. Here it is, of course, literally after dark. It's the weekend. Anne is off in San Diego visiting a friend of ours. She's on her way back, but she's not going to be back here for another hour and a half or so. So I thought, since we had some time, that we would do a live stream tonight and just take your comments and questions. Is everybody in the live chat is fired? Just let me know you're able to see and hear me okay? Everything good? Everything's good? Yes? Okay, good. I think everything's good. All right. Then let's get things started. I hope you guys are doing well. It's been a good weekend. Ann and I today and our buddy Ryan, we went to one of my favorite places, which is Frankensons. If you don't know what Frankensons is, it's basically a Walmart-sized place that is, you know, Comic-Con, you go onto the floor at Comic-Con to look for all the cool stuff. That's what it is. It's Comic-Con every day, like the floor. So you get Hot Toys and Sideshow and really cool art and shirts and figures and just lots of very, very cool collectibles. So we went there today and I came this close. Oh my God. I came this close to dropping like $2,000 today. I didn't. I exercised self-control, but I came really damn close to dropping like $2,000 today, because they had this Batman figure that was like bigger than quarter scale. Like it was like massive. It was huge. This giant Batman figure had to be at least 3.5 feet tall, maybe like 3 feet tall, of like him standing there with his cape blowing in the wind and he's standing on like a church rooftop. And that was like $1,300 on sale from, I think on the website, it costs like $1,500 or something. Anyway, so they had that. And then they had this larger than quarter scale Spider-Man. And this Spider-Man was like swinging, and this giant, you don't see Doc Ock, but you just see this giant Doc Ock tentacle like that stretched out and kind of wrapped around him a little bit as he's swinging by. And that one was about $600. And so, oh no, that was about $700. So it was about $2,000 altogether. And then the guy told me if I bought both of them, he would take like $100 or $150 off. So like $1,850, $1,900. And I was sitting there having this conversation with myself, saying like, okay, if the company buys it, because I mean, the company will buy it, because I wouldn't buy it out of my own money. I'd buy it out of the company's money, and it would be on set for the show. So it's set decoration for the show, and it would look really cool on the show. And I kept telling myself, it's for the show. It's for the show. So spend that money. And Ann and my buddy Ryan were both there. Do it. Do it. Just buy it. Go. Do it. Do it. And I'm like, I said, okay, let me take a walk and think about it. So I took a little bit of a walk. And I decided not to do it. I'm so cheap. You guys, for those of you who don't actually know me, like personally, I am very cheap. I'm really cheap. Like I spend money where I need to. Like I spend money where I need to. Like I spend money on my staff. I think I pay my staff very well. I all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to stuff like for me, I'm really cheap. I'm really, really cheap. But oh my God, guys, if you could have seen these two figures. These two figures were like, they were so good. They were so good. I'm not saying that there's not a chance I may not go back to Frankensons at some point and buy myself those figures. So if you do see some new figures popping up on the table, you'll know I eventually gave in, but giving you guys some insight into that. Anyway. So here's what we're going to do tonight. Tonight is just all about you guys. What do you guys want to talk about? The super chats are open, but you guys have it's almost completely full. So I'm only going to leave the super chat open for just a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to turn it off because there's already a lot of questions that you guys have sent in for us to talk about tonight. By the way, Carl Wolf, our channel member for 6 months, used his free monthly super chat that our members get. Carl, just so you know, we do not answer those questions on this show because I have no way of keeping track of them. I just happen to see yours right now. Those questions should be used on the John Campea Show, but because I see it, I will make it the first one I answer, all right? So Carl is writing, Star Trek Picard Season 3 trailer looks great. I'm very excited. I was not a big fan of Picard Season 2. I didn't think it was all that bad, but I just didn't think it was particularly good. But I really did like Season 1. I like Season 1 quite a bit. So this season's trailer, all the stuff I've seen for it has looked pretty good, and I'm looking forward to watching it. Okay, now with that said, let's get over and start taking your questions, shall we? And who are we going to start off here with? We're going to start off with, is it Raymond Reddington? Yes, Raymond Reddington says, John, are you seeing any films this weekend? I was going to go see Amsterdam. We had tickets, Ann and I had tickets to go see Amsterdam. And by the way, yes, Ann and I were talking about today, Nigel McGuinness got released by the WWE today. And yes, he is still dating Kaori. You guys know Kaori. She's been on my show a number of times. She's our very, very good friend. And Nigel and her have been dating for a number of years now. And yeah, I just found out today that Nigel got let go by WWE. It's really too bad. He's a terrific guy. And it was very sad to hear that he had gotten let go by WWE. But yeah, we were going to go see Amsterdam, but I heard from so many people that it was really bad that decided to skip it. I decided to stay home. Ann and I went to go do a bunch of stuff, and I decided to stay home instead today and do a live show with you guys instead of going to see Amsterdam, because everybody said it was so bad and I didn't want to be disappointed. So there's that. All right. Next up. Raymond also writes, just came back from Amsterdam. The performances in it was good, but the story was terrible. Should have been better. And that's exactly what I've been hearing from a lot of people, Raymond, was that it was really, really quite bad. And so the thing is, when there's a movie I'm really excited about seeing, like I have been for Amsterdam, and then I hear it's terrible, I choose normally to just not go see it because I don't want to be let down. Like normally, if I hear a movie's bad, whatever, I'm still going to go see it, right? Because whatever, if it's bad, it's bad. But when I really am looking forward to it and I've got my hopes up for it, I just don't want to get my heart broken. So sometimes I just want to go see it, like Amsterdam, unfortunately. All right. What else we got here? We got Neil Before Zimmer writes, over under 30% that Sauron is actually Galadriel, 0%, and that the real Galadriel never came back from the Arctic. No, that would make no sense, because we've had a number of scenes in the show where it's been like her alone and her, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would give that very creative thinking, but I would give that actually a big 0% that Sauron is actually Galadriel. All right. Casey Mack writes, watch Hellraiser movie today, and I gotta say Hulu hit another one out of the park because I enjoyed it. Yeah, listen, Hulu's been killing it, man. I was able to watch like 20 minutes of it the other day because I was up way too late the other night. Like I was literally up writing the show notes till 5 a.m. because I did like a Weird Al. I went to the Weird Al premiere, the movie premiere, which was awesome. Then I watched, when I got home from that, watched Rings of Power and watched Werewolf by Night. And then I wrote my show notes and I got to bed at around 5 a.m., had to get up at 7 to come into the office and get ready. So yeah, I was only able to squeeze in about 20 minutes of it, but I've heard fantastic things. I cannot wait to sit down because Hulu has really been killing that. All right. Let's see here. Dan Ketchman writes, I know everybody loves Werewolf by Night. I thought it was great, but I just don't. It wasn't that funny, and it really wasn't scary. Wanda was way scarier in Multiverse of Madness. Well, yeah, Wanda was scarier in Multiverse of Madness. I agree that I didn't find it all that scary, but number one, it wasn't a comedy, so I wasn't looking for this to be funny. I agree, it's not all that funny, but you know, it's not a comedy, so I didn't really expect it to be funny. As far as scary, I mean, not much scares me in movies, to be honest with you. Like very, very few movies do, but I thought it was aiming for that 1940s, 1950s classic monster movie horror kind of vibe. And I don't find those very scary either, but they really nailed it, I thought. And I quite enjoyed it for what it was. It was a little bit of a lark. Yeah, it was a little bit of novelty for sure, but I still had a really good time with it. But hey, man, not everything is for everybody, Dan. So if it didn't work for you, it didn't work for you. No problem. All right, Josh Becker writes, do you think Rings of Power works as a weekly show, or would it have worked better as a binge? House of the Dragon works so well as a weekly show, but I don't know about Rings of Power. No, I definitely think Rings of Power is better as a... is definitely better as a weekly show. Like, I think it's absolutely better as a weekly show. What I'm not... The thing about House of the Dragon, though, it's not that House of the Dragon works as a weekly show and Rings of Power doesn't. That's not it at all. Rings of Power, I believe, works better as a week-to-week show. But compared to House of the Dragon, it looks poor because, just quite frankly, House of the Dragon is a better show. I don't think Rings of Power does much better. I don't think Rings of Power does much better if it's just all dropped at once. I mean, it is what it is. And I don't think I definitely think it's gotten better, but it's just not as good as House of the Dragon. And so whenever if you try to compare it, it's gonna look like it comes up short. And hold on a second here, guys. I've got to get the super chats turned off because we already have way too many, probably more than I'm going to be able to do. So give me a second here while I get super chats turned off. Where are they? There they are. Okay, super chats turned off. Okay, there we go. All right. So yeah, I just don't think I think it works better as a weekly show. It's just not as good as House of the Dragon. All right, Josh also writes, do you have a favorite Robert Eggers film? Yeah, his brand new one, The Northman. I love The Witch. That was great too, but Northman, I certainly like it better than The Lighthouse, but The Northman is definitely my favorite one. All right, Josh Becker also writes, do you like Hereditary? I love Hereditary. I think it's an excellent horror movie with genuine scary scenes. Also, Colette was robbed of an Oscar nomination. Here's the funny thing about Colette. I don't just think, like, before they announced the Oscar nominations that year, she was actually my favorite to win the Oscar. I thought she was going to win the Oscar for Best Actress. I was stunned, absolutely stunned, when I found out she didn't even get nominated. Like, I was beside myself. I couldn't believe it. So yes, she was completely robbed of a nomination because I thought personally she should have won, but that's just me. All right. Next up, Santez Henderson writes, very disappointed you and the crew haven't done a review of Lyle Crocodile. I think it's the movie of the year. Nay, movie of the decade. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie to you. I have no plans on watching Lyle Crocodile. Now, to be fair, last I heard, it's not getting bad reviews. Like, hold on a second, Lyle Crocodile. Last time I checked, it's in the positives as far as its reviews. It's got a 68%. That means almost 7 out of every 10 critics that see it actually say it's pretty good. So yeah, I have no interest in watching it, but to be fair, it's getting positive reviews. So just something to keep in mind. All right. Richard K writes, oh, no, that was Sandus. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, have you seen the movie The Guest? 2014 classic starring Dan Stevens. Freaking awesome movie and highly recommended to anybody who hasn't seen it. I think I did. I think me and Ann watched that because Ann was a huge Downton Abbey guy, Downton Abbey fan. So I'm pretty sure I watched it and I can't remember a thing about it, which probably pretty much tells you it didn't make much of an impact on me, but there's probably a lot of people who haven't seen it, Russell, and you just put it on a lot of people's radars. So good on you for doing that, my friend. All right, next up. What is your favorite Wolfgang Petersen movie? Oh, God, I can't even remember off the top of my head. By the way, you misspelled Peterson. I know he's the guy who did The Boat, but I can't remember what else. Oh, that's right. He directed Air Force One. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, because I believe he died recently, right? And we talked about him on the show. And I knew, of course, he's the guy who did Das Boot, but that's really much all the things I forgot. Everything else I forgot about. But Das Boot are also known as The Boat. And he directed Air Force One. I totally forgot about that. He did The Perfect Storm, that one I knew. I totally forgot about Outbreak. You know what? I'm going to say Outbreak. I think Outbreak was my favorite film of his. It's funny because when the pandemic started, a lot of people went to, what's that Matt Damon movie? The The one about the disease spreading, Gwyneth Paltrow's in it, Matt Damon. Come on, you guys. Contagion. Thank you. Contagion. So a lot of people would talk about Contagion, and I get it. Contagion's a good movie. I think Outbreak should have been the poster child movie of the pandemic. Outbreak to me is a superior movie to Contagion. I mean, again, no disrespect to Contagion. I thought Contagion was good, but not nearly as good to me as Outbreak was. All right. Next, we've got, who we got here? We got Enigma115 who writes, hey, John, longtime viewer. Thank you so much. First time super chat. Thank you, Enigma. Warner Brothers exec are set to view the Ayer cut on the 5th of November. Ayer cut inevitable. Thanks for bringing on the filthy. I don't believe that. Just so you know, I saw the same rumors going around. I don't believe that for a second. And by the way, I don't care about whatever cuts. I really don't. They're pointless and useless, and they don't accomplish anything. Like, take the Snyder cut, for example, okay? Is the Snyder cut a better movie than the one that they released theatrically? I would say yes. Yeah, it's the better movie. However, they lost tons of money making it. Like, it cost them $70 million to make the Snyder cut. $70 million on top of everything else. They didn't make a penny off that. And here's the thing. Is it the better movie? Yes, it's the better movie. It's not that great, but it is better than theatrical. And I already like I like the theatrical version. But I thought the Snyder cut was the better version. It definitely was. So what? What did it accomplish? It didn't accomplish anything. Like, great. And now it's gone. They put out an extended version of another movie we had already seen. And all the energy, resources, screaming, crying, whatever. Great. Warner Brothers dropped another $70 million to get it made, which they lost. And at the end of the day, what did it accomplish? It didn't accomplish anything. It was the better version of the movie, but so what? And so, like, that's generally my thing. Like, I'm sure, like, I liked the Suicide Squad as it was. It's a hot mess of a movie. We're talking about David Ayer's Suicide Squad. I like that movie. It's a hot mess of a movie, yes, but I was entertained by it. Would the quote-unquote Ayer cut be better? I have little doubt that it would be better. I mean, so I have little doubt that it would be better. I'm pretty sure it would probably be even better, but I would ask again, what's the point? We get a slightly better version of a movie we've already seen when that energy, resources, all that kind of stuff could be put towards new films. I don't know. That's why, like, a lot of people often ask me about director's cuts, right? Like, forget Snyder cut, forget Ayer cut, director's cuts. You know, a lot of times the home video thing will come out and there'll be the regular version, then there'll be the director's cut. I don't care about director's cuts. Sometimes they're better, sometimes they're not, but at the end of the day, what's the point? Like, what's the point of it? It doesn't change the movie. It doesn't change what happened when it came into theaters and the majority of people saw it that way and whatever. So, yeah, and I'm not trying to poo-poo on anybody who likes their director's cuts. Not at all. If you get a kick out of them, that's awesome. I celebrate that. I'm not trying to yuck on your yum. But since you're asking me, that's why I've always said, like, yeah, I really don't care about director's cuts, because what difference does it make? What does it ultimately accomplish? And the answer is nothing. It doesn't accomplish anything. We end up getting, if we're lucky, we end up getting a slightly better version of the movie that we already saw. But so what? I mean, so anyway, so I don't personally believe, I'm not telling you factually that we're not going to see an Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. I'm not telling you factually that the WB executives aren't going to screen it, but I don't believe the report. I don't believe the rumors that are going around. Just because I don't believe it doesn't mean it won't actually happen. Of course it might. I'm not saying factually it won't, but yeah, I don't believe that. So I don't believe they will, but whatever. That's just me. Okay. Next up, Richard K writes, with the Bond producers waiting or wanting a 30-something Bond, my choice would be Taron Egerton. He's too short to play Bond, I think, in my opinion. Kit Harington, he'd be pretty good. Aidan Turner, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, John Boyega. But my pick would be Egerton. And who would you pick from that list? Probably Kit Harington from your list. I still think that Henry Cavill's the guy. Remember, Henry Cavill was the runner-up to being the new Bond behind Daniel Craig. They were going to go really young. Like, they were going to go really, really young. And Henry Cavill was the runner-up. And I think he's the right guy to do it. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's what they're going to do. I'm not telling you that Henry Cavill's going to be it. He probably won't be. But I think he's the right guy to play it. But out of the people on your list, I'll say Kit Harington out of the guys on your list. Aaron Taylor Johnson would also be quite good. But Taron Egerton, he's too short to play Bond. I personally, I mean, it's not the be-all, end-all in the world if they did cast him. I would be, hey, I think Taron Egerton's a really good actor. If you haven't seen Eddie the Eagle, watch Eddie the Eagle. He's awesome in that. But yeah, he wouldn't, I just don't think they'll go that way. All right, next up. Richard K says, best Chuck Norris movie. I know he's only in it for a second. Dodgeball. There you go. All right. Best Cynthia Rothrock movie. I'll be honest with you, I don't even know who that is off the top of my head. Jared Vester writes, tell Rob, and Jared sends in like a $50 super chat. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate that, man. Tell Rob it's okay that he didn't win me a Black Adam Funko Pop. I'm not sad. How can I be? After all, heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Yeah, so we have been playing... During the show, we have been playing a couple times a week. We've been going back and playing over or under again. I don't know what you guys think about the over under game. I know I have a lot of fun doing it. It breaks the show up a little bit. It's fun. It gives us an excuse to do some giveaways, just some little giveaways, like some autographed Funko Pops that we send out to channel members that we have. I'm seeing you guys in the live chat are saying that you like the segment. Yeah, I like it too. I mean, it takes some time to prepare it every week, but it's pretty fun. I like doing it, and I really like that the three people competing are each representing one of our channel members who are watching the show, and then if they win a prize. I kind of like it. It's fun. All right. Thanks a lot for that, man. All right. Let's see. Next up. And yeah, Jared, I'm sure Rob feels really, really bad. And I mean that honestly. We were talking once off screen. He goes, man, I just hate it when I lose, because like there was somebody counting on me to win for them. Because, and I never really thought about that. It does put a little pressure on Ray and Rob, and if Chris is there, Chris, or if Aaron is there, Aaron, or whatever. But it does put a little bit of pressure. But it really bothers Rob when he loses, because he feels like he let somebody down who was the person he was representing. So I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that, Jared. Thanks a lot for sending that super chat too, man. That was very, very generous of you, dude. All right, next up. The Sock writes, I saw Smile. I loved it. Used tension very well. I don't often get scared, but throughout the movie, I was often curled up into a little ball. Also, finishing Prey and Binge Severance. Any word on season 2? I haven't heard anything about season 2 for Severance, except for obviously that it's coming. Smile, I liked it. In a thumbs up or thumbs down world, Smile for me is a thumbs up. I enjoyed the show, or I enjoyed the movie. I didn't think it was great. You know what it did do pretty well? It utilized jump scares pretty well. Now, jump scares is a pretty cheap tool for horror movies to use, but they can be very effective if you use them right. And I found Smile had some pretty decent jump scares. It did. I had some major problems with some of the storytelling, but again, at the end of the day, I didn't think it was great. Probably won't ever watch it again. But again, in a thumbs up or thumbs down world, to me, Smile is a thumbs up movie. I enjoyed it. All right. I'm glad you did too, man. All right. Next up. Let's see here. Danny Sanchez writes, something nice. I love the show. Watch religiously. Thank you so much, Danny. I always say it's always nice when somebody wants to just write in just to say something nice. So thank you for that, Danny. I appreciate that, man. All right. Jared Vester also writes, I think Viserys has become my favorite Game of Thrones character. His character is poetically tragic to me. Listen, I love Viserys. I know people crap on the Viserys character a lot, but I love the character. He is, I think when you look throughout Game of Thrones, like everybody is so many shades of gray, right? There's no real pure good guy and pure bad guy, except for obviously like the Night King or something. But Viserys is as close to a true good guy as Jon Snow, or even more so. Like, when you go through the show, does he make mistakes? Yeah, sometimes he does. But the thing is, every time he's made a decision or has done something, his motivation has always been to do what is right by his family or do what is right by the kingdom. And meanwhile, the whole world just shits all over him. I jokingly told Ann, I think I said on the show, I said they might as well just rename House of Dragons to How Life Shits on Viserys This Week. Because every week is just about life shitting on Viserys. Every week, without stop. Whether it's his disease or his ungrateful, stupid family or whatever, it's just life shits on Viserys every week. All right, next up. We got Kevin Frazier who writes, I can't think of another YouTube show with a team with such diverse strengths. Acting, animation, and voice work, punditry and critique, production. Ray, I think that's why I keep coming back. High octane fun. Well, thank you so much for that, Kevin. I appreciate that. And yeah, I've always strived, like going back to my AMC days, for making sure that we're putting together pieces. Like whenever we bring in somebody new, I try to make it somebody that brings something to the table that we're missing. Right? And so sometimes it's with a big obvious thing, sometimes it's with a more obscure thing. But like one of the things whenever I'm growing a team or making a change to a team, whatever, I kind of try to look for, again, I always think in sports terms, right? Like what position are we weak at right now? What do we not have covered so well? That's one of the great things about, Chris Carr, for example, is that like I don't have a big anime repertoire. But Chris Carr does. And so it's kind of cool that she's able to be in there. Jonathan Voica with a great production point of view on a lot of things. He's able to bring that. I mean, Rob, obviously, with his background and on and on and on. So thank you for that, man. I really appreciate you saying that. And I really like the team we have. All right. Next up, Kevin Frazier also writes, also, I know this isn't the purpose of your show, but your words on the Little Mermaid drama, Star Wars toxicity, and basement-dwelling foolery go a long way. As a black gay guy, your message resonates. Thanks. You're a black gay guy. Oh, never mind. Let's move on from your... No, I'm kidding. Yeah, listen, I simply do not understand why some people choose to focus their life on hatred. And I don't know if focusing on hatred distracts from the other problems in their life. I don't know if focusing on hatred makes them feel better about their own inadequacies. Like maybe if I focus on something I hate about other people, it'll make me not think about the things I don't like about myself. That's usually what I find, that people who are really focused on hatred are usually people who are compensating for inadequacies that they hate in themselves. And instead of wanting to acknowledge and address and deal with inadequacies in themselves, because we all have them, right? We all have inadequacies in ourselves that we don't like. But instead of maybe wanting to focus on that, they just choose, and I'll never understand. Like, I'm not just talking about in movie spheres too. I mean, just generally people who like to focus their life on hatred and focus their life on, because there's a lot of blogs and podcasts and YouTube channels that their sole reason for existence is to complain. Complain about those gay people, or complain about those black people, or complain about those women, and just complain, boo hoo hoo. And I've never understood wanting to live your life that way, but well, whatever. Anyway, glad you're here, Kevin. All right, next up, Josh Becker writes, I'm wondering if we are getting the next Jumanji. You know, I'm going to say this as somebody who really loved the first one. And when I say the first one, I'm not talking about the Robin Williams one. I'm talking about the first one of this franchise, the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson one. As somebody who really loved the first one and enjoyed the second one. I didn't think the second one was nearly as good as the first, but I enjoyed it. I kind of feel like it should be over. But I get it. They both made a lot of money. They'll probably try to go back and make another one, but I feel like it's run its course and they should probably just leave it alone now and move on to other things. But they will probably make another one. They make a lot of money, and who am I kidding? I will go see it and I'll probably enjoy it too. But yeah, I kind of feel like they should move on from it though. All right. Let's see here. Jamie Sundays writes, seeing Tar tonight at the Grove looks good. I have no idea what Tar is. Sorry about that, dude. Josh Becker writes, over under 80%, Black Panther 2 and Avatar 2 both make $1.5 billion. I don't know. I wouldn't give Avatar 2 an 80% chance of making 1.5 billion. It's going to make a ton of money. Avatar 2 is going to make a truckload of money. I do think it can make 1.5 billion, but I don't think it has an 80% chance of getting, like, I might say 52, 53% chance. So I'll take under on the 80 and keep our fingers crossed. All right. Next up, we've got Jamie Sundays writes, rewatched Everything Everywhere All at Once again recently. I still think it's great, but I was a little exhausted by the third act. Still great, though. Hey, listen, honestly, I was talking to a friend of mine about it. If I had one complaint about the movie, that would be it. There were certain points in the movie where I thought they maybe should have taken their foot off the gas and given us like a 10-minute reprieve before jumping back into something bonkers. Because, yeah, there were points in that movie that made me feel exhausted. That being said, as of right now for me, that movie is still the best movie of the year. I still think Everything Everywhere All at Once is the best movie of the year at this point. We'll see if I still feel that way in a few months. All right, thanks for that, Jamie. Next up, CJ Rebirth writes, I don't know if you remember, but way back in the AMC days, a reviewer asked you about Crypto being in Man of Steel, and your no response had me dying. I think I remember something about that. Do me a favor, if any of you have a link to that, I would like to see it. If anybody of you know where that is online, have a link to it, I'd like to see it. Do me a favor and email it to me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. So John, John, at thejohncampeashow.com. If you guys find a link to that, I would love it if you could send it to me, because I vaguely remember it, but I would love to. A couple of people have brought it up, so I would love to see it again. All right. A. Marcellus writes, I'm on the train home from New York City Comic Con. Nice. Went to the Back to the Future panel and saw Michael J. Fox, good Canadian kid, by the way, and Christopher Lloyd. I also met Martin Kove from Cobra Kai and his son, Jesse Kove. You know what? One of the really great things about any of these types of conventions, whether it's a D23 or a Comic Con or a Star Wars Celebration or New York City Comic Con or whatever, one of the great things about them is you never know who you're going to bump into. And the ability to, if you're lucky to get into one of these panels and actually see these people you've been a fan of for so long on stage, live and in person. And that's just one of the great things about it. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Like, actually, Ann and I went to Los Angeles. What was it? The Los Angeles Comic Con? It was either that or what's the other main convention, guys, in the live chat that San Diego Comic Con puts on? And it used to be in San Diego and now it's in LA. It's not WizardCon. It's run by the same people who do San Diego Comic Con, and I cannot remember the name. WonderCon. Thank you, Justin. Justin Cellular was the first person in the live chat to put that in. Donnie also sends in, so does Rick. So WonderCon. Ann and I think we're at the last, I believe it was WonderCon. And we've never done this, but we signed up to meet Giancarlo Esposito, and we signed up to meet Benedict Wong, who of course plays Wong in the MCU, because we really just wanted to meet those guys. And I'd never met either one of those two before. So yeah, it was just great that these conventions give you the opportunity to do stuff like that. So I think that's great. I'm glad you were able to do that, man. All right. Let's see. Josh Becker writes, my excitement just went way up for Black Adam after listening to the Black Adam theme and the JSA theme. Lauren Balfe also composed Top Gun and MI6. Have they put out the soundtrack for Black Panther for Black Adam? Have they put, like, if they put that out, I didn't know about that, so I'll have to go find it. I would be very curious to listen to that. All right. Thanks a lot for sharing that, Josh. Josh also writes, are you excited for the Banshees of Inisherin? I am actually today. Wait, was it today? Let me just double check that. Let's see here. Let me check in my trash. I just got my invite. The Banshee. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, there it is. I got my invite today to the Banshee of Inisherin. Searchlight Pictures invites you to see blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to go. I'll be honest with you. Like the the trying to think about how I can say this. So there it is. So it's on October 10th. Honestly, the reason I'm not going to go, and this is going to sound weird, I know it sounds a little petty, I'm not going to go because Fox Searchlight Pictures is a Fox company, and Fox, of course, is a Disney company. And the screening for it, the early screening for it is at the Disney lot. It's at the Frank G. Wells Theater at the Disney lot. The Disney lot is a wonderful place, by the way. Totally a wonderful place. But I have no interest in ever stepping foot on the Disney lot again. I have no interest in it whatsoever. Now, I told you guys a while ago, and I'm not going to go into details, but I told you guys a while ago, a couple of months ago, that I had requested that Disney take me off their press list. And clearly, they still send me stuff. But yeah, I have no interest in going to thing now. A. Marcellus is saying, John, give Jonathan your pass. These, when they send these out, they're very, very clear that they're non-transferable. So it's not like just something I can give to somebody. These are non-transferable. They will, when you show up to the Disney lot or the Warner Brothers lot or the Universal lot, they always have a big security gate and they check your ID and they check to see if your ID is on the guest list. And so, yeah, these things are non-transferable. These things are non-transferable. But again, I'm not going to sit here and trash talk. Anybody, including Disney or anybody. But several months ago, I let you guys know that I had straight up asked them to take me off their press list. I have no interest in covering anything Disney again. Like, don't get me wrong. I will cover that as a regular fan. Like, as movies come out, as TV shows come out, all that kind of stuff. I will talk about them, love them or hate them, whatever, just so cure. But I have no desire to be on Disney's press list. And that means I have no desire to step foot on their lot anymore either. So while I am very grateful that they sent me this invitation to see the Banshees of Inisherin, and I'm very excited about it to see Brendan Fraser, Colin Farrell, and Brendan Gleeson, Donald Gleeson's dad. And of course, these two guys have done movies before. They're fantastic. But no, I am not going to go see the early screening of it, but I will look forward to go seeing it in a regular movie theater when the time has come to see it in a regular movie theater. All right. But yes, I am excited for the movie. I think it looks great. Santiago Lugo writes, why is it not called the Giovanni Campea Show? Well, because I don't go by Giovanni Campea. Like my grandfather, when he came over from Italy, when my grandfather and my dad came over, my dad kept his name Pasquale, but he shortened it up to just go by Pat. And my grandfather did what a lot of Italian immigrants did at the time, and what a lot of immigrants from other places of the world did, which is they kind of went by a version of their name that helped them fit in a little bit more with the culture they were in. And so my grandfather, for his whole life in Canada, went by John. And I was named after my grandfather. So a couple of places that I've lived, I went more by Giovanni. Like when I lived in Saskatchewan, most people there called me Gio or Giovanni or whatever, but I've always gone by John, and that's a lot easier. By the way, too, John is many syllables shorter than Giovanni. Like it's 3 syllables shorter than Giovanni. The Giovanni Campea Show is a lot longer to say than the John Campea Show. So it's just, I just go by John. All right. Thank you for asking, though. All right. Next up. Let's see. A Sith Lord writes, I just watched WBN, and man, oh man, that first episode was delightful and very different. Wasn't excited for it, but now I'm ready for episode 2. Again, I have no idea what WBN is, so sorry about that, guys. Guys, try not to use abbreviations, because if I don't know it off the top of my head, I don't want to waste time sitting there trying to think about it. So just write out the name of the movie or show that you're thinking about. A Sith Lord says, do it. Don't know what we're talking about, but it's a good philosophy in life, a Sith Lord. All right, a Silly Goose writes, I saw Terrifier 2 on Thursday. That's funny because I think Rob and my assistant Taylor were going to try to go see that. I saw Terrifier 2 on Tuesday, and it was wild. Had one of the most beautiful scenes, or brutal scenes, I've ever seen. Art is a certified menace in this movie. I loved it. Yeah, I know absolutely nothing about this. It's funny because people talk about Terrifier 2. I've never even heard of Terrifier. I've never heard of it. I have no idea what we're talking about. So yeah, I've never heard of it, but apparently some people are really liking it, and that's awesome. But thanks for letting me know, silly goose. I appreciate that, man. All right, next up, Santiago Lugo writes, what is Feige's obsession with Rick and Morty writers? He has picked them for She-Hulk, Kang Dynasty, and Waldron and his projects. Concerns me. I don't know if there's an obsession. Listen, Rick and Morty have had a lot of writers, like a lot of writers. And it just may so happen that he knows a couple of them, but you're right. It's been funny lately seeing a lot of the writers coming up lately have had some connection to Rick and Morty. So I don't know. Maybe he thought, a lot of people love Rick and Morty. They can bring some of that over. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure why or what's going on with that. But like the Waldron thing, here's the thing about the Waldron thing, okay? The Waldron thing is, while I am also a little bit iffy, I didn't love Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but I thought it was good. I didn't love Loki, but I thought it was all right. But so here's the thing, though. A lot of movie fans, and I said this on the show before, but a lot of movie fans seem to have this misguided idea that writing a movie or writing TV show is easy. And it's not. And especially when you're looking at something like, when you look at what the nature of the Loki show is and what the very nature of Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness is, those are not easy scripts to write. Those are really not easy to write, like at all. Not even a little bit. These are bonkers, convoluted, multiverse, and multiverse is bullshit anyway, but multiversal it's not easy to write something that comes across as a solid narrative with all the bonkersness. And I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it's not easy. So just because Waldron didn't do what I would think the most amazing job on Loki or Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, listen, I'll be hard pressed to come up with a lot of people who could have done much better, because those are not easy projects to write. And I thought the job he did on both of them were fairly respectable. Now, let's see what happens when he starts approaching these other projects. I'm not sure, but yeah, you're right. There's a lot of Rick and Morty connections there. There's no doubt about it, Santiago. All right. Let's see. A Sith Lord writes, send peace and love. Thank you, John. You rock, man. Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that very much. That's incredibly kind of you, dude. All right. Dwayne Cinema writes, just watched the new Hellraiser, not bad for a reboot. I've heard, again, I saw a bit of it. I liked what I saw so far, but the reactions and the responses to it have been great. I know Rob was very curious about this. He enjoyed it a lot. I mean, Hulu's just killing it with these things, man. I'm looking forward to having a chance to sit down and watch the rest of it. All right, Dwayne Cinema also writes, I just read that Lethal Weapon 5 is still moving forward with Mel Gibson, still set to direct, and says filming could start early next year. Personally, I'm pumped. I have not seen that report. I don't know where you're reading it from. Now, don't get me wrong. I haven't spent my weekend paying a close attention to the trades, so I'm not saying it's not true. It very well could totally be out there. I'm just saying I haven't heard that news yet. I would be curious to know, did that come from a reliable source, or does that come from like a Gus's gas station movie reviews.fart source? I'm just curious. But listen, Mel Gibson's a terrific director. I don't know that there's a lot of hunger out there for a Lethal Weapon 5, though. I'm not sure that there is. But, I mean, who knows, man? Let's see where they go with it. All right. Let's see. Next up, we've got Arjan Athwal, who writes, over under 30% that Paddy Considine wins Best Actor for his portrayal of Viserys. Love the show. It's highlight of my weekdays. I'm going to go much lower than that. Like, not 0, but maybe like a 5%. Because I'm not even sure you can call him the lead character, the lead actor of the show. Some people might argue that maybe Matt Smith is the lead actor. Some people might argue that, different people might be. I'm not really sure he would even fall under the category of lead. I'm not sure. And like I'm not sure that a lot of people would even have him as the best person in the show. So while I'm not going to say 0, and I love him in this show, like I love Paddy Considine in the show as Viserys. I think he's great, but I actually think the chances of him winning like best actor at the Emmys is probably, I'd put it closer to about 5%. Although I'd be super happy for him if he did. All right. Thanks for that, Arjan. All right. Jonathan Vigoa writes, I have one problem with the She-Hulk. The writers think just having obscure characters is funny. Feels like they're trying too hard to be Deadpool 2 or Suicide Squad. I don't necessarily agree with that, Jonathan. I don't particularly find that they think having an obscure character is automatically funny. They can be funny. Having an obscure character can absolutely be funny. The problem is bigger than that. The problem is She-Hulk's writers are not funny at all. And I don't mean to sound overly negative. I'm not trying to bash on anybody. Believe me, I'm not. But none of their stuff is funny. They have had, I'd say maybe 3 huge laugh moments. Maybe 4. 1 or 2 with Wong. Their funniest moment, I still think, was the twerking scene. I know some people have a problem with that. I don't give a shit if you have a problem with that. I thought, I nearly choked. I laughed so hard when they did that. I thought that, and I applaud them for their guts to go there and to go that. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'll say this. Part of the problem of She-Hulk is that they were not willing to truly just grab it by the throat and go for it like they did with the twerking scene. Because with that twerking scene, they were just like, fuck it, let's just go. Let's just go right to the wall with it. And they did that there. And for me, it was incredibly funny. And they very rarely have been willing to do that in this show. The other really, really funny moment that I think is the second funniest moment in the series was that fucking Daredevil walk of shame. Because I laughed twice in that scene. First, when I realized that they had Daredevil doing a walk of shame. That by itself was hilarious. And I was laughing out loud when I realized what was going on. Because, Anne had me watching the show with her. And of course, even if Anne wasn't having me watching the show, I probably still would watch it because it's the episode with Daredevil. But when I realized he was doing the walk of shame, I laughed out loud. But then I noticed he was carrying his shoes. Very stereotypical walk of shame move. I realized he was carrying, because for those of you who don't know, like the walk of shame, the girl's going home in the morning, and usually the night before they're out at a club or something, so they've got the high heels, and so they take off their high heels and they walk bare feet. So seeing Daredevil, number one, do the walk of shame was incredibly funny. And then when I realized he was carrying his shoes, I almost died. Like I was laughing hard already, and then I nearly spit. I was laughing so hard at it. But here's the problem. What was that? 8 episodes? They should have 2 to 4 laugh out loud moments per episode. And I've had maybe 4 laugh out loud episodes in total in 8 episodes. And so I don't think, Jonathan, that the problem is that they think obscure characters are funny. The problem is they're just not funny at all. And they've shown they had the potential to be funny, but they just haven't gone for it. And yeah, so it's a lukewarm half burn that has been, quite frankly, after a very, very promising start, it ends up being quite a disappointing show. But, whatever. The Daredevil episode was good. I did enjoy that. All right. Chase the Sunrise and Sunsets writes, John, have you seen the remake of The Grand Seduction set in Newfoundland? I have not. I love the dynamics between Brendan Gleeson, who we were just talking about in Banshee, Taylor Kitsch, he's great, and Canadian legend Gordon Pinsent. It's one of my favorites. I'll be honest with you, Chase the Sunrise, I've never even heard of it. I've never even heard of the remake of The Grand Seduction set in Newfoundland, which is one of the East Coast provinces. It's one of the smaller East Coast provinces in Canada, for those of you who've never heard of it. But I have never heard of such a thing, man. But I love Brendan Gleeson. Love that dude. And I really love Taylor Kitsch. I don't know why Taylor Kitsch did not become a big major movie star. He really should have. But at any rate, thank you for putting that on my radar. And I am absolutely going to go look it up, man. Thank you for mentioning it. All right. Next up, our friend Ben Rayner writes, hey, John. Happy Saturday. Thank you so much. Buy one, rent one, lose one. Master of Domain episode from Seinfeld. Dinner party from The Office. And flu season from Parks and Rec. Which do you like best and worst? Woo! All right. So I'm going to say, I don't think Flu Season is a very, very funny episode of Parks and Rec, but I don't think it's a top 4 or 5 best one they've done. So I will say Dinner Party from The Office, which is a top 2 or 3 best episode of The Office ever. At least funniest episode of Office. It's a plasma! One of the best Office. So I will say buy Dinner Party, rent Master of a Domain from Seinfeld, and lose Flu Season, which is a hilarious episode, but again, I don't think a top 5 one of theirs. So, ooh, that's a very good. By the way, Ben, I just noticed you tipped in $25 for that. So thank you so much, dude. I really appreciate that very much. And again, I think those, by the way, are my 3 favorite comedies of all time, television-wise. In no particular order, The Office, Parks and Rec, Seinfeld. I think those are the 3 greatest comedies in television history. So, yeah. All right. Guys, we're about an hour in, so we're going to take one more, and then we're going to take a short break, if you don't mind. I'm going to refill my drink. I'm going to stretch my legs, give you guys a chance to talk amongst yourselves. And our last one right now is for Gabriel Leroux, who writes, for directing Blade, what would you think about Antoine Fuqua? He's got both style and grit. Training Day, The Equalizer 1 and 2, Southpaw, he'd be great. Okay, so just so you know, Gabriel, I don't do X actor and X role or X director directing X movie, because there's no such thing. I mean, I think there's 40 really good directors who could direct Blade. I think, so whatever. I love Antoine Fuqua as a director. I think he's fantastic. And so, yeah, he's a great filmmaker. That's all that counts to me. When I hear a director directing a movie, all I care about is, are they a good director? That's all I care about. Are they a good director? Are they good storytellers? Do they work well with their actors? That kind of stuff. That's the only thing I care about. So, yeah, I mean, do I think Antoine Fuqua needs to be the guy? Again, I don't care. I'm not an ex-director directing X-movie kind of guy. But if tomorrow, theoretically, they announced that Antoine Fuqua was directing it, sure, he would be one of those directors that I would be totally happy with. There would be many others as well, but Antoine Fuqua would absolutely be one of those directors that I'd be happy with. Okay, guys. So here's what we're going to do right now. We're going to take a 3-minute break. About 3 minutes, just enough time for me to run, refill my drink, stretch my legs a bit, rest my voice a little bit, and then we'll be right back and continue on with more of your questions. Hang on, don't go anywhere, and we will be right back. guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. Let's dive right back into it here, shall we? And where do we leave off? We leave off with Gabriel. Now we're going to pick up with TV Slab Dragon Watson, who writes, I find She-Hulk hilarious. Seinfeld, not. And we both love Night Court. Isn't life wonderful? I mean, listen, we always talk about on the show that art is subjective, right? And nothing is more subjective than comedy. Like, the guy walks in the room, tells a joke, half the people laugh, half the people don't. Neither is right or wrong. It just is what it is. Humor hits us all in different ways. And if you find She-Hulk hilarious, that's great. I celebrate that you're having a good time watching it. I'm glad that you are. I'm actually a little bit jealous that you are because I wish I was too. You don't find Seinfeld funny? Okay, not everything's for everybody. No big deal. But hey, that's the beauty of the subjectivity of the art, man. All right, thanks for sharing. Next up, Alfredo Parra writes, I remember watching Heroes when you had Adi Shankar on. Must have been challenging for Schnepp to lead that show that day. Can you share what the post-show conversation was like with you and Schnepp? Here's the funny thing. So Adi Shankar was like, honestly, seriously, I feel bad saying anything remotely negative because he was a really nice guy. Like, really nice guy. We thoroughly, he was there. We talked a bunch before we started doing the show that day. And he was super nice. I couldn't have enjoyed him more. Like, totally nice guy. But yeah, he was a challenging guest. Because for those of you who saw the episode, it was like, so Addie, when you're thinking about this, like, what was your thought process on that? Yes. I mean, it was challenging having him as a guest, but again, totally nice guy. He's had a lot of success. I couldn't be happier for the guy, but yeah, it was a challenging show. And then afterwards, me and Schnepp, we was like, well, that was interesting. Like, talking about it a bit. It was a little difficult, Alfredo. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little difficult. All right, next up, Anti-Spiral writes, hey John, will you be watching Netflix's anti-war remake of All Quiet on the Western Front? If so, have you seen the trailer? Yeah, we did watch a trailer. Me and Rob and Chris sat down and watched the trailer the other day after one of the shows. And yeah, I will definitely be interested in tuning in to watch it. I thought the trailer was really well done, very moving, very powerful, and the original, of course. So yeah, I'm definitely going to give it a watch when it comes out. Thanks for that, Auntie. All right, LJ writes, hi, I love the show. Thank you so much, LJ. Did you have the chance to watch The Woman King? If not, when do you plan on watching it? Great movie. Here's the thing about Woman King. So I couldn't go to the advanced press screenings. I think we talked about on the show that I was gone when the advanced press screenings were happening. And then the opening weekend, Ann and I were out of town. And then we planned on seeing it and couldn't go. And if you know anything about me, if I can't see a movie within the first week of it coming out, I'll usually wait then until it comes out on home video. And that's too bad because I've been totally excited. I've been telling you guys about Woman King ever since CinemaCon back in April because they gave us this big presentation on Woman King. It looked fantastic. Obviously, you got Viola Davis and all that kind of stuff. But like once a week comes and goes, I can't review the movie anymore. And there's 1,000 other things I'm supposed to see and watch. And so when I get an opportunity, when I have time free up that I get to sit down and watch something, whether it's a show or a movie or something, I've got to use that time to watch the new stuff rather than watching something that I've already missed the boat on. So I have not seen Woman King yet, and I hate that, but it's just going to have to wait now until it comes out on home video, I think. All right. But I've heard nothing but amazing things about it. All right. Next up, we've got Unbeatable, who writes, Wolf by Night was missing two things. Sam and Dean felt like it could have been a really good episode of Supernatural. Man, I miss Supernatural. Dude, you have no idea how much I miss that show. Jensen Ackles was fantastic as Soldier Boy on The Boys. But I'm not going to lie. At the end of every episode, it just made me want to watch Supernatural again. I don't know how they would do it. I really don't. But I hope 3 or 4 years from now, somebody who, whichever network, like if CW still exists or if they don't exist, whoever owns the rights to Supernatural will mount a limited special 1-season bonus season. And I don't know how you do it. When you look at how the show ended, I don't know how they'd possibly do it. But that's whatever. The kid who's now God, just say he decided to reset something and they go back and they bring the boys back for one more, say like 8-episode limited run. I would Love if they did that. They probably never will, but I would really love it if they did. All right, thanks for that, Unbeatable. Okay, Lachlan Morris writes, "Hey, John, have been watching some old Brian Leanhan interviews on YouTube from his show City Lights. The detail in every single one of his questions is remarkable. Not many like him. I'm not going to lie. I have no idea who we're talking about. I could try to fake you and sit here and pretend like I knew who we were talking about because I feel like I should know who this is. And I could just say, oh yeah, he's really good, all while secretly looking something up on another monitor. But I'm just going to be straight with you. I don't know who that is, so I can't answer that. But clearly, he's somebody who I'm going to guess, had some kind of late night talk show, interview show. I'm going to guess that he was. Again, I feel bad that I don't know that, Lachlan, but thank you for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of people who are watching the stream right now, because like over 1,000 people are watching the stream right now, and I'm sure a lot of people watching the stream right now are going, you're damn right that he was really good. But unfortunately, I don't know who it is. And I respect my audience too much to try to fake it. So I don't know who it is, unfortunately. All right. Next up, Hoop Suni writes, as much as I thought She-Hulk has just been mostly meh, I still can't wait to see the character pop up in whatever she's going to be in next. Here's the thing, with her being this fourth wall breaking character, I wonder how you bring her into something else. And if you do bring her into something else, you probably get rid of the fourth wall breaking. Which is fine, because honestly, the fourth wall breaking hasn't been they haven't done much of it. And most of the stuff they've done with it has been inconsequential. The Daredevil episode was a little bit different. Like, I love the way they utilize fourth wall breaking in that, because like she's talking with Matt at the bar, and then he takes a call and she turns to the cameras like, it's not only me, right? Like, you guys are feeling this too, right? Like that, like engaging the audience and bringing the audience into it. That was a pretty good use of fourth wall breaking, but honestly, fourth wall breaking has been a very, 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 very minor part of this show. So I guess getting rid of it would be fine. I honestly don't know what their plans for She-Hulk are after this season. I mean, the way they've done this show, can you even bring She-Hulk into other stuff? I'm not saying they can't. I'm just asking the question. I don't know, because this seems to be almost like the She-Hulk world almost seems to be like a little pocket universe within the MCU. And can you bring her out of it? I don't know. I guess they could find a way. Hopefully if they do, they'll find a way to do her better than they've done it in the show. All right. Thanks for that, Hoop Suni. Mickey writes, I'm really happy Daredevil has reappeared in the MCU. Charlie Cox hasn't missed a beat with this character. You know what? I got to say, I know a lot of people were very, very nervous. A lot of people were very nervous about how they were going to portray Daredevil. And I got to say, I think you saw me say this to Rob on the show, that the Daredevil we saw was the lighter side of Matt, for sure. That was the lighter side of Matt. But it was still very consistent with the Matt we had seen, right? We had seen that lighter side of Matt before. And they just happened to just stay on the lighter side of Matt. But that was totally Matt. I still don't think it's literally the Netflix version of Matt. I think it's a new multi-dimensional, like a different dimensions version of Matt, whatever. I have a feeling they're going to say that the Netflix Marvel shows were another Earth, like an Earth 175 or something like that. I don't know. And so their counterparts in our world are going to be very, very similar, like this Matt. But whatever that ends up being, I don't know what the answers are. I'm just guessing here like everybody else. But I thought that the Matt they showed us was a pretty good Matt. I mean, I really thought the lighter side of Matt, absolutely. But that's the lighter side we've seen before. All right. Dr. Bright writes, hey, John, how's your weekend so far? Really good, thanks. Have you heard the Black Adam and Justice Society themes yet? If so, do you like them? Yeah, somebody else wrote in a little bit earlier saying they just heard them. I did not know they were online yet. I've been kind of occupied today, so I have not heard them, but I'm dying to hear them. And we'll probably talk about it on Monday on the John Campea Show. So far, Dr. Bright, I've not had a chance, but my weekend has been great. Thank you very much. I'll probably go over and check it out once we're done the live stream here tonight. Thanks for asking, man. All right. Oh, our own Marie Seafring sends in like a $20 super chat. Thank you, Marie, for supporting us on that level. And Marie writes, I'm not familiar with the Supernatural MCU comics. I understand that from Eternals, Dane Whitman will probably have something to do with Blade. They want Moon Knight to show up in movies. Do you think Jack, Elsa, Let's see, that was part 1. Jack Elsa, man thing from Werewolf by Night will show up in the movies, or are they in a separate sphere? Thanks. You know, that's a very, very good question. Here's something interesting, though. I think my assistant Taylor, if I can find it, I think Taylor sent out something here, and I'm not 100% sure. Maybe he emailed it to me. Let me see this. At any rate, I think Taylor sent out something that, here it is. Is this it? Yes. Okay, I'll show you this in a second. Taylor sent me this email, and he said, I have attached the concept art for the upcoming Disneyland ride that will have both Werewolf by Night and Ted in it, in case you guys wanted to mention it. Okay, so this, I guess, is concept art for new feature at Disneyland, if I'm understanding Taylor right. Yeah, the new Disneyland ride. So let me see if I can bring this up here. Okay, so here's the concept art he's talking about. And if I can get this right, yeah, like that. I'll just bring it like that. Okay, there we go. So in this art, you can see in the top right, right behind Spider-Man, there's Ted, or Man-Thing. And then, where am I looking here? And then you see on the right beside Hulk, you got She-Hulk in there. But right to the right of She-Hulk, there's Werewolf by Night. Let me see, can I see Elsa in here? I'm looking around. I don't see Elsa. I mean, there's a Black Panther. There's Thor, Iron Man, the animated Peter Parker, the animated thing. There's Moon Knight in the top left. In the very top left is Moon Knight, so you see him there. But I don't see any Elsa. So, I don't know. Again, this is for a Marvel ride, right? This is for a Marvel ride. So just because they're in this Marvel ride thing, that does not necessarily mean anything, okay? But maybe, I mean, if anything, the Werewolf by Night thing felt like its very own pocket universe. I don't expect to see it outside of that in the MCU, but they very well could. And again, this picture does not necessarily mean anything, but it could mean that that Disney and Marvel are looking at them as a part of the overall MCU. So what does that mean ultimately? I'm not sure, but it's possible. It is possible. Okay. Thanks for that, Marie. Next up, we've got Talk and Entertainment writes, got done watching that stupid crocodile movie, and boy, was I charmed. Is it Paddington level good? No, but I came out surprised because the trailer looked atrocious. Well, that's the funny thing. We were just talking about that Lyle crocodile a little bit earlier, in that the fact is, like, it's got almost a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, which means that almost 7 out of every 10 critics seeing it are liking it. It has positive reviews. And I agree, the trailer looks atrocious, which makes me want to ask Talkin' Entertainment, why did you go see it? You knew the trailers looked that bad. But hey, listen, you, like a lot of people, went into it skeptical and are coming out saying it's actually pretty good. Now, I don't expect it to be as good as Paddington, but then again, I didn't expect it to be good at all. So, you know what? I still have no desire to see it. I probably won't see it, but you know what? If Anne decides she really wants to see it, I just might go with her, because I'm hearing from a lot of people, including you, talking, that you actually liked it. Okay, Gabby Butler just sent in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, Gabby. Appreciate that. Donuts writes, I know it's a bit reactionary, but I would love if Giacchino directed Blade now that they are in need of a director. I would, somebody brought that up on the John Campea Show, and I would say, whoa. Okay, listen. I really liked Werewolf by Night, but let's not pretend that it's a standard motion picture narrative story, right? It was very much a gimmick. Gimmick's not a dirty word, by the way. Don't be afraid of the word gimmick. Gimmick can be very, very good if done right. But it was very much a gimmick. It was it was a hyper stylized, exaggerative kind of play, almost a parody in some ways of a 1940s, 1950s thing. Look, that is not to say that Michael Giacchino cannot direct a actual real that's supposed to be taken more linearly, narrative storytelling, big storytelling stuff. I'm not saying that it can't, but I'm saying let's not get ahead of ourselves. Listen, I think he did a very good job on Werewolf by Night. Very good job. Good enough that I'm very curious to see what he's going to do next. But do I think doing a really good job on this 55-minute, very stylized, kind of gimmicky shtick of a movie that was very good, very entertaining, I liked it. Do I think that's like, wow, okay, give him this big Blade property? I'd say pump the brakes a little bit. My reaction would be pump the brakes a little bit. Let's let him do one or two other things. But again, and I say that as somebody who was a big fan of what he did with Werewolf by Night, but let's call it for what it is. It was not a standard MCU movie, right? And I would like to see him do one or two other things first. But that's just me. That's just me. But I did like what he did with Werewolf by Night. All right. Thanks for that, Donuts. Next up, we got Dwayne Cinema, who writes, I respect JC's, I'm assuming you mean James Cameron's Avatar, and its re-release success with its $2.9 billion total. But in my opinion, I firmly believe it'll be beaten once again by a big upcoming MCU film. It'll be back and forth money war. Nah. Listen, I'll be honest with you. It's going to be a long time, I think, before another movie reaches $2.5 billion, let alone $3 billion. I think it's going to be a while. The only movie that has a chance right now of catching Avatar would be Endgame in its re-release. Because you know they're going to re-release Endgame to prep for the upcoming Avengers 5 and Avengers 6, right? So that one will have a shot. But I mean, Wakanda Forever is not going to make $3 billion. Avatar 2 is not going to make $3 billion. Blade is not going to make $3 billion. I mean, I just don't know where to go with that. So I don't think Secret Wars or Kang Dynasty, because neither one of those will have the buildup that Infinity War and Endgame did. Infinity War and Endgame was literally a 13-year 20-plus movie, massive period of time build-up that all led to that moment. So far, Phase 4 has been fairly weak. It's had some big successes. Ms. Marvel, WandaVision, Shang-Chi. I think Werewolf by Night is very good. I mean, they've had some definite highlights. But they've also had a lot more mediocrity than we're used to seeing out of the MCU. Black Widow, Hawkeye, She-Hulk. I mean, it's just, again, I'm not saying Phase 4 has been bad. I'm not saying it's been bad. There's been some really, really great stuff in it. But we've seen more mediocrity in Phase 4 than I think we've seen in all of Phases 1 through 3 combined. So the MCU right now, to me, is still very strong. It's just not as strong as it has been. It hasn't been able at this point to kind of recapture that magic yet. But right now, I don't see how like Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars are going to touch Endgame, let alone Avatar's $2.9 billion. Now, ask me that question again in a year and a half. Ask me that question again in a year and a half. Because maybe we'll all feel different by then. But I mean, I don't know. Other than Endgame's re-releases, which I think will give it a shot to catch Avatar, I don't see anything new competing for $3 billion. I don't see anything doing that in the next number of years. I think it's going to be a while. But again, ask me again in a year and a half. All right. Let's see. Next up, we have Dustin Barton, who writes, have you checked out Dahmer or Blonde? Thoughts? I did check out the first couple of episodes of Dahmer. Everything everybody said it was. I mean, I know there's a bunch of people that haven't liked it, and I respect that. But for me, the first couple of episodes have been quite gripping. Liked it. I have not watched Blonde yet, though. I have not got around to Blonde yet. But I am very, very curious to watch it. All right. Chat96 says, Just says, hey, thank you for that, man. I appreciate that. Next up, Doug Cowell writes, John, I know you're a D&D player, yes. Did you watch Legend of Vox Machina? Never heard your thoughts on it. Oh, we talked about it quite a bit, Doug. Does New York City Comic Con's announcement about a third season get any excitement? Yeah, I thought Vox Machina was really pleasantly good. I enjoyed it very much. I'm not going to say it's a top 5 thing of the year that I saw, but it was, and I'll be honest with you, I did not have high hopes for it. I'll be honest, I honestly did not think it was going to be any good. But it's a D&D thing, so Ann and I hunkered down when it came out to watch the first episode, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised by it. I like Vox Machina very much. I can't wait for season 2. Now, it's nowhere near as good as, say, Arcane. But then again, Arcane, I think, is the best animated show of all time. That's how impressed I was with Arcane. I honestly think it's the best animated show ever made. But it's really good. If you have not seen Vox Machina, sign up for Amazon Prime and watch Vox Machina. I thought it was really, really charming, and I'm very excited about season 2. All right. Let's see here. Where are we? Hey, John, have you seen Hellraiser yet? Again, somebody else brought that up a little bit earlier. It came out on the same night as Werewolf by Night and Rings of Power, and that I went to go see the Weird Al premiere. So I've only had a chance to watch the first 15-20 minutes of it so far. I really liked what I've seen. I'm just hearing great reviews, so I'm excited about watching the rest of it. All right. Next up, Ryan Santee writes, over under 30% Kevin Feige appears in Deadpool 3 as Kevin Feige. Over. I absolutely think Ryan Reynolds is going to knock down his door if he has to. Say, you've got to make an appearance in this. You have to make an appearance in this. So I will go over. Now, it's not guaranteed. I wouldn't say 90%, but I will take the over on the 30%. Thanks, Ryan. All right, next up. Edgar McGanna writes, been watching since I was 13 and I'm 23 now. Well, thank you so much, Edgar. When do we get the soft reboot / different focus MCU? After the next slated Avengers, bring on the filthy. Impossible to say. Because the next slated Avengers are still a few years away. Like, I mean, who knows what the state of the MCU is going to be at that time? It's really hard to say. Look, at some point, the MCU will have to reboot. At some point. Is that point 4 years from now? Is that point 14 years from now? I don't know. I mean, right now, most average viewers, including most of us, are looking at the MCU and we're failing to see how this is even all connected. So we're going to have to get to Infinity War, we're going to have to get to Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, but that is so far off that it's really, really hard to say. Then again, the X-Men coming into the universe now may give it a whole new fresh lease on life. So at this point, it's just impossible to say, Edgar. All right, thanks for writing that in, man. Daniel Vakura writes, I just saw Play Again today, and man, I wish movie theater crowds acted like those crowds with no talking, phones out, etc. Just so much more respectful. I don't know what Play Again is. I don't know what it is you're talking about, but when you're talking about, I wish movie theater crowds act like those crowds with no, oh, you saw a play, not some movie called Play Again. You saw a play today. Okay. With no talking, phones out, just so much more respectful. Yeah. Listen, nothing drives me more crazy in a movie theater than when I see people pulling their phones out and people talking a lot during a movie. But honestly, and maybe I've just been super lucky, because I think it's fair to say I go to movie theaters more than most people do. I think that's fair to say. It's rare when I walk out of a theater going, wow, I was really bothered by this person or that person or that person in the movie theater. It doesn't happen often. And I don't mind. Like, I'm somebody who really doesn't mind if there are people talking in the theater, if it's obvious they're trying to be respectful, right? So, like, I've sat behind some people before where, maybe a guy and his wife are sitting in front of us, and the guy's leaning over and trying to speak very quietly to his wife. I can hear it, but he's trying to be quiet and whisper and stuff like that. Because to me, movies are also a little bit of a spectator sport. And sometimes I like the energy of a live thing. Now, again, phones or talking out loud and all that kind of stuff, that does bother me. But honestly, and again, maybe I'm just been lucky most of my life. I'd say maybe 1 out of every 6 to 10 times, maybe 1 out of every 6 to 10 times that I go to a movie, do I walk out having a really bad experience because somebody with a phone or somebody talking out loud or something like that. So it doesn't really happen much with me. And again, the little things, sometimes I find can be great. Because again, I like feeling like I'm in a crowd. I like feeling like I'm in this great atmosphere too, as long as people are trying to be respectful. But yeah, when they're not, it can be irritating, my friend. It can absolutely be irritating. All right. Razzle Prime writes, good evening, John. By chance, did you get to see the Star Trek Picard Season 3 full trailer released today? What did you think? No, I did not. Again, my day has been, I went out for breakfast with Ann, then me, Ann, and my buddy, we went out closer to LA to go to Frank & Sons. Ann and I came back here today. We went and walked our dogs. Then I watched some football, and then we're doing the show. So no, I have not seen the Picard Season 3, but I have very, very high hopes for it, and I'm very excited about taking a look at it. And for sure we'll be talking about it on Monday's show. All right. Next up, Jay Taylor writes, hey, John. So now that She-Hulk Episode 8 gave us the Sokovia Accords being repealed, do you think it is likely that Episode 9 might give us something that has more effect on the MCU? Leader or maybe Red Hulk? Thanks and bring on the filthy. I really don't. I mean, listen, I remember we had this big debate on the John Campea Show quite a while ago. It was ages ago. We were still in this room. This is back when the studio was still in this room here in my converted garage, which is now clearly a theater room. But I remember saying, I guarantee you, after the events of Endgame, the Sokovia Accords are gone. And it was never actually brought up in the MCU, but did you guys see that episode when we were talking about it? I said, I guarantee you the Sokovia Accords are gone. Because the very fact that the Avengers were splintered and were not together and were not unified and they weren't able to stand up against the threat of Thanos and all this kind of stuff, that is part of the reason that Thanos was able to win, that half the world got snapped away because of the Sokovia Accords. And again, I've been saying this ever since Civil War, Team Cap was right. Anyway. So I remember saying at the time, I guarantee you the Sokovia Accords have been repealed. I guarantee you they're not there. And now She-Hulk has just kind of confirmed that. Remember, the Sokovia Accords did not get repealed in She-Hulk. She-Hulk just made it official. They've been saying what me and probably a lot of you guys already knew, that the Sokovia Accords after the events of Infinity War were probably gone. So there's that. But do I see anything in She-Hulk having a big, massive impact on the MCU and the direction and future of the MCU? I don't. Look, Leader makes sense. The Leader makes sense. But I think it's becoming pretty clear that little annoying guy is probably King Hulk or Hulk King. I think that's him. You remember the one who just called Jennifer to meet him for drinks? The one that went on the speed date with him, then you find out he's actually a client of the Thing. I think we're going to find out that he's Hulk King. At least that's my guess. I don't think it's going to be Leader. Although, again, Leader does kind of make sense. Totally does. But I don't think we're going to have that or... I don't think we're going to have that or Red Hulk, even though she made a joke about a Red Hulk. I don't think it's going to I don't think anything that's going to happen in She-Hulk is going to have some big major implications on the MCU. I could be wrong. I'm not saying quote me on that. I'm not saying take that to the bank. That's just me, random speculation as a fan. So, yeah. Okay. Let's keep going here. Next up. Oh, and by the way, I just noticed that Jay Taylor had tipped in like $20. Thank you, Jay, for supporting us on that level, man. I appreciate that, dude. Chris Martin writes, Looking forward to Halloween Ends, the copycat killer vibe I'm getting from the final trailer. I'm very hesitant. We shall see. I'm not going to lie to you, Chris. I have zero interest in it. I loved the 2018 version. Loved it. And it was the first Halloween movie I've ever liked, and I loved it. I was super excited about the second Halloween movie that came out a couple years ago, and I was so brutally disappointed in it that I have zero interest. And then finding out that they're dumping it, they're doing the stupid, putting it on Peacock and in theaters on the same day, that tells me they have no real confidence in it, just like the last one showed they had no confidence in it. And as it turns out, they were right to not have confidence in it. I have no hope for this movie. I mean, I'll watch it for sure. I'll watch it, but I have zero expectations. I am not excited for this in the least just because the last one I thought was so bad. But here's hoping, man. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Let's see if they can turn it around. All right. Next up. Curious Jort writes, theory. Stark left AI version of himself behind in a break in case of emergencies program and will show up in Armor Wars, possibly with holographic body. I mean, listen, an AI version of Tony I can buy, but if you're going to get Robert Downey Jr. back, you're bringing him back, period. You're not going to have him be a holographic AI thing. If you can get Robert Downey Jr. back, and by the way, I've said for years, Tony Stark will be back. Robert Downey Jr. will be back. I don't think yet, but while that makes total sense, I just don't see that the MCU is going to pay the kind of money Robert Downey Jr. wants to be paid, even just to appear as a holographic image sort of thing, right? So I just don't see that happening. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I don't see that happening like in something like Armor Wars. But I do think Robert Downey Jr. will be back, and maybe he'll be back in time for Secret Wars. Then again, I've also said I think Chris Evans will be back. He will. By the way, the MCU has not recovered. The MCU has not recovered from losing Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, from losing Captain America and Iron Man. They were the two faces of the franchise. They were the heart and the spine of the MCU. And losing both of them at the same time, I think has been more damaging to the MCU than even most people realize. So I believe they will be back. Again, I don't know how big of a role, small of a role. I don't know if it'll be this year, next year, 3 years from now, whatever, but I do believe they'll be back. And I got a feeling it might be for Secret Wars. I don't know that for sure, but I think it'll be back in time for Secret Wars. Okay. Let's see here. Next up, we got my buddy Kevin Rubio writes, John, I'm ashamed to admit that I had a blind spot in my vast film library that has now been corrected. Hell's a Poppin', 1941. It's like a live-action Tex Avery cartoon. Highly recommend it. I ain't gonna lie, Hell's a Poppin' is also not in my film repertoire. Let me, Hell's a Poppin', 1941. Ole Olsen, which is actually also the name of an old wrestler. Hell's a Poppin'. Now the screen explodes. Oh no! With the arrival of those two sons of fun. Okay, I have no idea what this is. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. But Martha Ray was in it. I am not familiar with this at all. I'm not familiar with this at all. But hey, listen, I'll tell you what, Kevin. If you're telling me I need to see it, I will try to check it out. I will try to check it out, Kev, if I get a chance. Hell's a Poppin'. Got it. I got it bookmarked on my IMDb now. All right. HV3 writes, last week I watched Don't Worry Darling with my wife. Before seeing it, I had almost no interest in going to see it, but I was blown away. What a fantastic movie. I'm glad you liked it. I was a little bit late to it. I'll be honest with you. I love that you liked it. That's great. I was very disappointed in it. Just like, I get frustrated. I think a lot of people do. I get really frustrated when movies start laying out threads that they never pull on. Right? Like, So many things happen in this movie. Like even in the first two, like a lot of people complain that the movie falls apart in the third act. I'll be honest with you, I had problems in the first two acts. Like the basic premise, setting up this world, it gets me into it a little bit. It's like, oh, what's going on here? Ooh, what's this all about? What's actually happening here? Because clearly you know right away that there's something going on. Like there's more. What's the deal with this community and the veneer in front of it, right? I got all that. But they started introducing things that they never come back and explain. That, oh, this happens and this happens. Well, I wonder how that's going to come back into play later on. And it never does. And then fundamentally, the twist at the end is like, well, wait a minute. This doesn't actually make any sense. Like, think about the end of Sixth Sense, right? And again, listen, HV Theory, I'm not trying to talk you into not liking it. If you liked it, awesome. You hold on to that. That's great. I'm just explaining my own personal feelings on it. That's all. But like when you get to something like Sixth Sense, right? When the twist happens and you find out that Bruce Willis has been dead the whole time, well, instantly that makes all the dots connect. That bit of information, that twist, that reveal brings the whole movie together. I found myself, and that's what a good twist does. I found myself that when I see some people saying, spoiler alert, listen guys, if you don't know the ending to a 15-year-old movie, you clearly don't have a lot of interest in watching that movie. You've had 15 years to watch it. You clearly don't care about it. But at any rate, but when you get to the end of Don't Worry, Darling, like, or even before, once you get in the third act of Don't Worry, Darling, and the twist becomes apparent, it's like, well, wait a minute, that makes no sense. That's completely inconsistent with this and this and this. And if that was the case, how would this make sense? And how would this make sense? And it just, yeah, it kind of lost me. But again, that's me. I know a number of people, HV, including a couple friends of mine that actually really do like it. And that's great. I mean, that's the subjectivity of art. And just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it shouldn't work for you. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really didn't, unfortunately. I didn't hate it. I don't want to come across like I hated it. I didn't hate it. But I walked out pretty disappointed because all the way back to CinemaCon, I was really excited for this movie. All right. Daniel Vicura writes, I think that with Andor, Kathleen Kennedy doesn't get enough credit from people for bringing in Tony Gilroy in October of 2019, where he rewrote the plot and the original scripts were scrapped. Let's see. Then Gilroy is named the new showrunner in April of 2020 over Stephen Schiff. Great decision. Now the Obi-Wan rewrites, not so much. Well, listen, Daniel, you can't say that the Obi-Wan rewrites not so much because for all we know, the Obi-Wan we got might be 10 times better than the Obi-Wan we were going to get. Like, we'll just never know. It could be that the Obi-Wan we saw, which, by the way, I did not hate Obi-Wan. I was disappointed in it, but I didn't hate it. And for all we know, the Obi-Wan we got might have been a lot better than the one we didn't get. So, again, that we'll just never know. Look, I say this as somebody who has publicly stated that I believe Kathleen Kennedy should move on from this job of running Lucasfilm, right? I don't think she's done a particularly great job. I think the number one job that she has, that the head of the studio has, is to make sure that you are putting the right creatives in charge of the right projects. And what we've seen is time and time and time again, directors removed, writers removed, this changed. I mean, it happens like every single project, not literally, but it feels like it, right? And so I have said publicly that while I believe Kathleen Kennedy is one of the greatest producers in the history of Hollywood, Steven Spielberg would tell you that himself, that being the head of a studio has not quite been her job. That's not been for her. I have a world of respect for Kathleen Kennedy, but I personally feel she should move on from this particular job. That said, there are other people who don't like Kathleen Kennedy, but they put on blinders. Because where I will be critical of Kathleen Kennedy for what I believe are very legitimate reasons, you also have to be ready to give credit where credit's due. And Kathleen Kennedy, and I say this as somebody who says that I think she should move on from this job, but she's had some big wins. And unfortunately, like a lot of people, they just think, no, because a lot of people think, unfortunately, there's some very, very thin-minded people in this world. And you can tell a thin-minded person when they just go, well, I don't like this, so that means I have to hate everything about it. Like, it's like some people decide, well, I don't like Kathleen Kennedy, therefore, nothing that Kathleen Kennedy does is good. You can't acknowledge anything right that she does. To me, that's a symptom of thin-mindedness. But she's had some big wins, and you've got to give her credit for the big wins. I mean, everybody says, man, yeah, Mandalorian's great. Well, yeah, but that had nothing to do with Kathleen Kennedy. Yeah, it abso-fucking-lutely did have everything to do with Kathleen Kennedy. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy had a stack a mile high of pitches for a Star Wars show. She recognized Jon Favreau's one. She looked at it and she goes, you know what? This can work. This idea can work. She had that kind of vision. Then she brought in Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau himself told the story at D23 that it was Kathleen Kennedy that said, you know what, John, I love this story and everything, but I want to pair you up with one of our guys, Dave Filoni. Because Dave's got a really good handle on the lore of our universe, and we've been wanting to get him more experience in some live action stuff. So I would love to pair you with Dave Filoni. You'll be the boss, but we want Dave Filoni to be an executive producer here too, blah, blah, blah. And Jon Favreau was like, that was Kathleen Kennedy's idea. So Kathleen Kennedy recognized Mandalorian had potential. She brought in Jon Favreau. She immediately hooked up Dave Filoni with Jon Favreau, wanted them to work together. And the results was The Mandalorian. You got to give her credit. And again, some very thin-minded people are going to go, no. Kathleen Kennedy had nothing to do with the success of Mandalorian. Yeah, she did. And you're just an idiot if you don't acknowledge it. I think The Force Awakens was a brilliant movie. I thought The Force Awakens was a brilliant movie. I think it's the best or the second best Star Wars movie besides the original trilogy. I know that's not necessarily saying a lot, but still, I think Force Awakens, Rogue One, they're just really great, fabulous movies. But again, she's had a lot of losses too. But again, you got to give credit where credit's due. And Andor, that's a win. Now, I've only seen the first half of the season of Andor. I haven't seen the second half. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe Andor goes completely to crap after episode 6. I don't know. But I can tell you this. Up until the end of episode 6, this show is fantastic. So, yeah. Kathleen Kennedy deserves credit. I still think she has more losses than wins. I still think that she should probably go back to producing and being one of the best in the world at that and let somebody else run Lucasfilm. I still believe that. But you got to give credit where it's due. And she's had some big wins. All right. Thanks a lot for that, man. All right, next up, HV3 writes, I am impressed. The Mario trailer was pretty darn good. I'm now excited for the movie. The bit with the penguins is hilarious. I'll tell you what, that trailer was really fun. This is how you can tell if a trailer is good or not. Are you more excited to see the movie after seeing the trailer or not? And after watching this trailer, I became a lot more interested in this movie. So the trailer's a win. Again, I have questions about the voice of Mario, but whatever. We literally heard 2 short lines come out of his mouth. So I'm not going to get too worked up about it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't like what I heard, the way his voice sounded for now, but it was only 2 short lines. So let's wait till the next trailer, shall we? But overall, I thought the trailer was really good, HV3. Okay. Slab Dragon writes, Slab Dragon name is because I have 2,350 CGC slabs. I don't know what that means, but I'm sure a lot of people do, Slab Dragon, and thank you for the explanation. All right, Mike's Movie Madness writes, if Rob heard the deal from Frankensons, he would have done it without hesitation. Oh yeah, he probably would have. And then he would have gotten in a lot of trouble at home. And I mean that without hesitation. He would have gotten in a lot of trouble at home. It's funny because Ann, me, and Rob were walking, or Ann, me, and my buddy Ryan, we were walking around Frankensons, and we were standing in front of one particular section that had like all the most glorious hot toy sideshow collectibles, statues, and figures. It was amazing. And I remember telling Ann, I said, if Rob was standing here right now, he'd go broke. He would completely financially ruin himself right now if he were standing here right now. All right. HV3 writes, for me, and I am only speaking for me, I will not see the new Flash movie unless Warner Brothers denounces Ezra Miller's behavior. For all I know, they may approve of their actions. They've never said otherwise. Listen, HV, I respect your... Look, if that's how you feel for you, that's fine. Warner Brothers is not Ezra Miller's keeper. Warner Brothers, listen, early, when all the stuff with Ezra Miller had started happening, I completely felt that they should address it, and they never did. And I believe by never addressing it, they empowered Ezra Miller's behavior. But that was 2 years ago. At this point, there's really no point. There really isn't. They are not, Warner Brothers is not Ezra Miller's babysitter, right? The movie's done. It's got final picture lock. It's whatever. Now all they got to, now their only thing is to promote. Like, I think, listen, I honestly think it's ridiculous to say, well, since they're saying nothing, they might actually endorse his behavior. Obviously, nobody on the planet endorses Ezra Miller's behavior. Nobody does. Nobody does. So I think it's a silly statement to say that, well, unless Warner Brothers comes out and makes some strong denouncement of Ezra, well, who else should come out and make a big denouncement of Ezra Miller's behavior? Should every director that Ezra's ever worked with? Because if a director who's worked with Ezra Miller doesn't come out and denounce Ezra Miller's behavior, are they endorsing Ezra Miller's behavior? No. Zack Snyder's the one that cast Ezra Miller. Is it Zack? If Zack Snyder doesn't come out and make a damning statement about Ezra Miller, does that mean Zack Snyder actually endorses Ezra Miller's behavior? No. Does, I don't know, whoever the director of the last Wizarding World Fantastic Beasts movie, do they need to come out and make a big statement about? No. What they do need to do is never work with Ezra Miller again. That's what they need to do. And that will be their statement. And that's why I've said on my show before, that if after the Flash movie comes out, if we suddenly hear that Warner Brothers is re-upping with Ezra Miller, you're going to hear my tone about Warner Brothers change real damn quick. Because that's your statement. You can say whatever words, talky. You can say whatever words you want, but your actions are your statement. And, you know, the current ownership of Warner Brothers, they inherited this problem. Right? This problem was there when they took over Warner Brothers. It's not their responsibility. It's not their fault. That being said, when this Flash movie comes out and then it's in our rear view mirror, that is the time for Warner Brothers to make their statement. And when I say statement, I don't mean talky. I mean actually doing something. There's nothing they can do right now, because the movie's done, it's been made, whatever. But once this movie's in the rearview mirror, they have to make the strongest statement, which is Ezra Miller is no longer our Flash. And you can do whatever talky you want. You can say it's because of scheduling reasons. We'll know what that really means. You can say it's because, we're taking the franchise in a new direction. That's fine. You can talky that, but we'll know what that really means. That you're not going to work with Ezra Miller anymore. And that is the time for their statement to be made. Before then, I mean, they're not Ezra Miller. Look, is any company responsible for the actions of every single one of their employees? And listen, I guarantee, see, here's the thing too. Some people try to compare the situation to, like, say, the Johnny Depp situation with the Fantastic Beasts, because people come out who don't really think this through. People come out and say, well, they fired Johnny Depp. That's because they hadn't shot the movie yet. I guarantee you, I 100% guarantee you that if they had already finished shooting or were like 99% of the way done, finished shooting, like principal photography on that Fantastic Beasts movie with Johnny Depp, they wouldn't have fired Johnny Depp until after the movie was done. They wouldn't have gone back and reshot all of Fantastic Beasts. They wouldn't have done that. And I guarantee you that if all this crap with Ezra Miller had come out while they were in the first couple of weeks of shooting The Flash, I guarantee you they would have fired Ezra Miller and they would have brought in a new actor to play Flash. But they were two completely different situations. They hadn't started making Fantastic Beasts when the Johnny Depp stuff came up, and they were completed their initial principal photography of The Flash by the time the Ezra Miller stuff came up. They're completely different scenarios. So again, my thing is, they are not responsible for Ezra Miller, and they can do the talkie all they want. Because here's the thing. So let's say they do. Let's say Warner Brothers comes out and makes some strong statement about Ezra Miller. Okay, what does that do? It doesn't do anything. Because if they come out and say, oh, we condemn in the strongest language all these things that Ezra Miller has done. Oh, okay. But none of that matters until the Flash movie comes out and they get somebody else to play the Flash moving forward. Because if they come out and make all this, oh, talkie, we're so disappointed in Ezra Miller, talkie, but then they sign Ezra Miller up for another Flash movie after this, then what good was the talkie? It means nothing. Actions. What's the movie that says deeds, not words? What help me out in the live chat again. Which one is that from? Deeds, not words. It's you know what? I think that's Megaforce. Yeah, it is. It's Megaforce. Deeds, not words. I need to see what Warner Brothers is going to do. I don't give a shit about what they say. I need to see what they're going to do. And if the Flash movie comes out, they get it all behind us, and then they come out 3 months later with a statement, so due to scheduling conflicts, we need to recast The Flash. We thank Ezra Miller for their participation and their contribution to the character, and we wish them well. And now that's what I need to see. That's what I need to see. But again, that's just me and my personal opinion. You have a different view of it, H3, and I respect your opinion, and I respect that you have it, but I have a very, very different point of view on it than you do, obviously. So thank you for sharing yours, man. All right. Next up, JJ Aguilar writes, watching Succession and made me think of the rumor of Zaslav flipping WB to Comcast. In the show, the Roys own a news station and use them to change public opinion for their own benefit. Do you think Comcast will use theirs? Well, oh, and by the way, JJ sent in like a $50 super chat for that. Thank you so much, JJ. Appreciate that very much, man. Okay, so first things first. Zaslav, after those rumors came out that they were going to be looking to position to sell it to Comcast, Zaslav immediately had this big town hall meeting with Warner Brothers staff, and then they released a statement that Warner Brothers is not for sale. So they squashed that pretty definitively and put out a statement that Warner Brothers is not for sale. So I was very glad to hear that, because I said on my show, if they just got this thing just to flip it, I'm going to be really upset. But again, Zaslav's came out, said to the entire staff, said to the world, that is not happening. Warner Brothers is not for sale. So that's good to see. But yeah, obviously that's a real world thing, right? Because that's been the thing with Fox for so long, is that Fox uses their whatever to whatever. It's a little bit of art imitating life. But again, it looks like, thankfully, JJ, that we don't have to worry about that, because apparently Warner Brothers is not for sale, and they better not be, because I'm going to be really pissed if they just treated it like a regular flip of a house, to just buy it just to turn around and sell it again. I'm going to be really pissed about that. But apparently that's not the case, and I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that it stays that way. All right. Thanks for running that in, JJ. And again, thank you so much for your generosity and putting in like that huge of a super chat. I appreciate that very much, man. All right. Next up, Cooper Wood writes, quick thoughts on Excalibur 1981. I grew up watching that film. I always thought it was a lot of fun. I don't know. It's been many years since I've seen it, so I don't know what I would think of it today. But I remember it's just one of those films I grew up with. All right. Logan Hoyne writes, hate how they handled Jaime's ending in Game of Thrones. I didn't. listen, here's the thing. I have never felt like in real life, people die, and they don't die in poetic, well scripted out, ways. And, they got this. Listen, Jamie died being Jamie, right? He was very loyal to his family. He was very loyal to his sister, the mother of his children. So the Targaryens aren't the only ones who got a corner on incest. But the fact that Jamie died with the person that he loved the most while trying to protect them and save them. Listen, Jamie should have died in a valiant duel. Well, that's not how life works. So for me personally, I thought Jamie died in a very Jamie appropriate way. But again, we all have different opinions of that, but that's mine. All right. Abel Leon writes, I just finished a 13-hour shift for paramedic school, and after dark is the only way to relax, probably. Thank you, John, for all the content that you make. Well, thank you so much. And listen, dude, seriously, our world needs first responders. If you're training to be a paramedic, that is awesome. The world needs them. I've had to have a paramedic in my life. I'm sure you all either have or know somebody who's had to have a paramedic come to aid. That is great. So thank you so much for doing that, Abel. And we're glad that you're able to be here. All right. JJ Aguilar writes, or maybe Jamie, maybe Disney wishes they kept Fox News in the Murdoch deal so they have their own propaganda wing to make the public go against the merger. Well, they technically already do. And it would have been a conflict of interest because Disney owns ABC, so they have ABC News. ABC News is a pretty major news division. So I don't think legally they could have also acquired that. And I don't think the Murdochs were interested at all in letting Fox News go. I think they wanted to hold on to that regardless. And again, I think Disney and the merger would have faced more government scrutiny of the deal if Fox News was a part of it. I think it probably came out the way they did. And again, they have ABC, so they already have that. All right. Ojas Gadri writes, a bouncer at this club told me to watch Yellowstone while I was going in, and it reminded me of you. Bring on the filthy. Again, to me, Yellowstone is the best show on TV right now. The best show currently out. All due respect to Succession, but I think Yellowstone's the best show on TV. I was late to the party on it. I totally was. But man, once I started watching it, I just burned through the first 2 or 3 seasons. I love that show. I love that show so much. I know a lot of you aren't watching it, but you should totally give Yellowstone a try. I really do love that show. All right. Thanks for that, Oas. All right. Joshua Mickle writes, after watching the Mario trailer, I said, how does this not make $1 billion? Illumination doing Mario feels like Insomniac taking on Spider-Man in gaming. Yeah, but I mean, it's an animated film, and some animated films do make $1 billion. We've all seen it. It's not a big franchise yet, so to speak. So, and again, a lot of people were turned off by Chris Pratt's, first of all, with Chris Pratt being cast to do the voice of Mario, which I'll be honest with you, I don't get the hate Chris Pratt gets. I really don't. I just feel like some people just look for things to hate in life. Chris Pratt is one of the nicest guys I have ever met in this business. And everybody who works with him loves him. Loves him. Like James Gunn, he just thinks Chris Pratt is like the greatest human being in the world. I don't get the hate for Chris Pratt. He's never been anything but a totally solid, nice, generous, sincere, sympathetic, and just amazing person. I've had a chance to sit down with him on 3 different occasions. I've had a chance to meet him on like 5 or 6 different occasions, including one time he came into my studio and was there for like a couple of hours. where I just got a chance to just see him and talk to him. And then again, he came into my studio again for another thing. It's just like one of the most, and this is how you could tell how sincere somebody, because anybody can act nice, right? I think I told this story before, but you know, Pratt had come into my studio once. The first time I met Chris Pratt, he had come into my studio to help do some promotion for a movie he had with Vince Vaughn coming out called Delivery Man. And so they came in and did a sit-down interview with me for like a half hour or whatever. And then they had asked, hey, we're supposed to do this big, I think it was Twitter. We're supposed to do this big Twitter Q&A for a while. Do you mind if we just hang out here in your studio and do everything from here? And we're like, sure. And that wasn't for like another hour. So we sent out one of my staff to go grab some food, and they just hung out with us and whatever. And they did the whole Q&A there, and we got to be a part of it. It was so great. And then, of course, he came in again to do promotion for Guardians of the Galaxy with Kevin Feige and James Gunn. But here's the thing, like 6, 7, 8 months pass after that, right? And Anne was there that day. Anne was there the day they were in our studio. 6, 7, 8 months pass. And now Guardians of the Galaxy comes out, and I go to do the press junket with like 50 other journalists. And remember, these guys, they all meet like 50 to 100 journalists every single day. And I remember I walked into the room where I was going to do my interview with Chris Pratt. And the first thing Chris Pratt goes is, John! I go, hi, Chris. Like, first of all, I couldn't even believe he remembered who I was. He goes, John, how you doing? I'm like, I'm good. He goes, how's Ann doing? He remembered my wife's name. And the first thing he wants to ask me is how my wife is doing. And that just kind of tells you the difference between somebody who's sincerely really nice and somebody who's just acting nice because they're talking to press. But I just remember I was so impressed by that. And of course, as soon as I came out of that interview, the first thing I did was text Ann. I'm like, so I just finished my interview with Pratt. And the very first thing he says to me is, how's Ann? And Ann just sends me a reply like with giant smiley faces and all that kind of stuff, right? But I will never understand the hate that Chris Pratt gets. I just don't get it. It's like, okay, now it's just cool to hate truly legitimately nice people. I don't understand that, but whatever. That's just me. Okay. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a ramble there. Let's see here. Gabriel Leroux writes, what are the worst terrible movie that you can't help but absolutely love, and the best regarded and universally loved movie that you absolutely hate? Well, I mean, I've talked, like my big guilty pleasure movie is Vanilla Ice as Cool as Ice. I've talked about that a lot. Like, it's a truly horrendously bad movie, but I will watch it every chance I get. Like, it's just so bad that I just giggle with glee and delight every time I watch it. The one that everybody loves that I don't like is the original Blade Runner. I wish I could pretend I was cool and say that I like it too. And listen, it is an all-time sci-fi classic. People much smarter than me love that movie. All due respect. But we all have that movie, right? We all have that one movie that everybody loves that we don't. And for me, that is the original Blade Runner. So that's mine. All right. Let's see. Where are we at here? That was Gabriel. So we're at CG Rebooth, who writes, what do you think of The Nightmare Before Christmas? I like it. I'm not as huge on it as most people are. Like, it's not one of my, I've got to watch this every holiday season kind of movie. I like it. Actually, a neighbor a few houses up for us have this giant Nightmare Before Christmas display up on their lawn. And I suspect they're going to keep it up all the way through Christmas. So Ann and I were just talking about it the other night. Ann and I go for these walks every night, and we walked by and we were talking about it a bit. So yeah, I like Nightmare Before Christmas. No, it's not one of my favorites, but I like it. Mikey Veach writes, curious on who and how often you get called Giovanni. Has Ann ever yelled at you with that name? And by the way, I don't know why people keep writing Ann's name with an E on the end. Ann's name does not have an E. It's just A-N-N. Anyway, I don't think Ann has ever called me Giovanni. I don't think Ann's ever once called me Giovanni. I have a couple of friends in LA, not many, but I have a couple of friends in LA who call me Gio. Most of the friends that I have in Saskatchewan call me Geo because that's what I was mostly known for out there. Back at home, I got a handful of friends that call me Geo. I go by Geo for that, but for the most part, I'm known by most people as John. All right. Next up, we have, who was that? That was Mikey Veach. All right. So Ryan Bergeron writes, have you heard anything about The Rock now heading up the DCU at Discovery Warner? No, The Rock is definitely not heading up the DCU at Discovery Warner. There's no chance of that. All right. And then our final one today is Velocity Pastor, who writes, John, is it just me or was Werewolf by Night a better Hulk story than anything Marvel has done with Hulk since Avengers 1? That Cage monologue was Hulk. No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, it was a very Hulk-like moment. It was a Hulk-like moment. You know, it's funny you bring that up because, again, like I said, we were at Frank and Sons earlier today, and we were looking at a hot toy of Professor Hulk, of Smart Hulk. And it was, I'll tell you what, it's a good-looking figure. And the face sculpt is, like, fantastic. But, I was talking to Ann about it, and I said, I just have no interest in owning that because I really don't like the character. And you know what? That's almost unfair of me to say because the character actually isn't bad. Like, I liked the use of Hulk in episode 1 of She-Hulk, but it's just that they used this Professor Hulk to replace the true Hulk. You know, you go back to the first Avengers and everything, Hulk was the last line true nuclear option. Like even Loki knew it. Like Loki's the whole point of Loki's entire plan was having the Hulk was in there amongst them. They were so desperate they even brought the monster on board. And he was a nuclear bomb. Right? You just like Hulk had to be whatever. And then like once we got Professor Hulk, it's just like they turned Hulk into a bit of a punchline. And again, it's unfair because Smart Hulk is actually a pretty fun character. I just wish they didn't have to sacrifice the true Hulk for this character. So, yeah, again, I wouldn't say that The Werewolf by Night did a better job with Hulk than the other movies have, but I think that one moment in Werewolf by Night when they're in the cage before he turns, that moment was very Hulk-like. I agree with you on that. That one moment was very Hulk-like, but I wouldn't say overall they did a better job than anything else. All right, guys, listen, that's all the super chats that we had come in. I'm going to take just a couple of minutes though and look over to the live chats and just see if any of you guys in the live chats have a question or two. So if you guys have a question or two that you just want to put in the live chat, you can do that. So I will look over here. I know there's like a 10 or 15 second delay, so I'll give it a second for you guys to do that. Took the last sip of my drink. Okay, let me, what's it called? Lemical KH2, I hope I'm saying that right, writes, hey, John, I remember you mentioning a show that you said the first episode was like the best ever. What was it? I think the show with the best first episode. Well, I know for me, the show with the best first season was Heroes. The NBC show Heroes with Milo Ventimiglia. I think that was the best first season of any show I've ever seen. But which one was it where I said it was like the best first episode I had ever seen? Honestly, I can't remember. If somebody knew what it was and brought it up, I'd probably go, oh yeah, that one. But yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's see. Benja TD writes, are you open to get actors promoting movies on your show like Pratt in the old days? Look, here's the reality. There are a lot of people who think, oh, wow, it's so cool. You get to go to these press junkets and do these interviews and blah, blah, blah. And I used to think that too. But the reality is, nobody gives a shit. Like, I realized that I was going out and I was interviewing Harrison Ford, and I was interviewing Denzel Washington, and I was interviewing Nicole Kidman, and I was interviewing Robert Downey Jr., and I was doing all this kind of stuff. And you know how many people watch those interviews? Very few. And that's why, like, as far back as the AMC days, before we even took AMC over to Collider, I stopped going to them because I just realized it is not worth the time and energy. Because nobody cares about these interviews. They really don't. And so I stopped doing them, and I let other staff of mine do them. And then when my other staff started to realize it was kind of useless, like it was a lot of effort to go through for no reward whatsoever, they stopped doing it. So eventually we just stopped going. Eventually we started turning them down, and we stopped going. So look, if Chris Pratt were to call me, which he never has, let me be clear. But if Chris Pratt were to call me and said, hey, John, do you think I can come on the John Campea Show? Which, why on earth would he want to come on the John Campea Show? I have no idea. That's like really desperate. But if Chris Pratt were to give me a call and say, can I come on the show and promote my upcoming movie? Of course I would say yes. I would absolutely say yes. If a studio were to contact me and say, hey, we've got this new Aubrey Plaza movie coming out, who of course is from Parks and Rec, right? We've got a new Aubrey Plaza movie coming out. I really like Aubrey Plaza. Would you mind if we sent her to be on your show to help promote her new movie? Of course I would say yes. So I'd be open to that, but I'm not asking. Like, I'm not going to go out of my way. I'm not going to waste any of my time. I'm not going to play any games. Like, I'm not going to get a hold of studio and say, can you send us an actor to be on our show, please? Like, I don't give a shit. And like, if they ever made a condition out of it, it's like, hey, I'll tell you what, we will send this actor into your studio if you will come and start covering our press junkets. And I'm going to say, no, it's not worth my time. And no one's really going to care if these people came on my show for one episode just to promote their thing. Nobody would care. Oh, you know what, guys? Give me a second. It's Ann calling. Hey, baby, I'm on live right now. What's up?
Oh, oops. Okay.
It's okay.
Anything from Target?
Oh, do I need anything? Hey, you know what? If I put in a Instacart order earlier. I know none of you guys care about this. Just give me a second. I put in an Instacart order earlier, and they didn't have any of those Kettle Honey Dijon chips. Could you see if they have those? I would love some of those. I can't. I need to think about that. I can't do that right now at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Okay, baby. Love you. Bye-bye. Anne, just on her way back from San Diego, is in town now, and she's just stopping at Target. Wanted to know if I wanted anything. That's why my wife is the best. So yeah, long answer short is if a studio or a talent reached out to me to say, hey, can we have somebody come on to promote a certain movie? I would probably say yes. But if there were zero conditions, and if I'm not the one who has to go out and start but I'm not going to go out and look for it because I don't give a shit about them. But if some studio were to call and ask, I would probably say yes. So there's that. Okay. Let's see. Rob is the GOAT 77 writes, what are your thoughts on Black Panther's long runtime? I feel like it could drag on like Batman. Just surprised the movie is the second longest MCU film. I say this all the time. There's no point in having a thought about the long run time until I see the movie. Like, the Batman was really long. It's still my second favorite movie of the year, but it felt like it was too long. But I had no way of knowing it was a little bit too long until I sat down and watched it, right? There is a possibility we can go in and see Black Panther and then come out saying, man, that movie needed another 10 minutes, or that movie needed another extra 15 minutes. We just don't know. We see, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, and it's 3+ hour runtime, whatever. And it's like, it's just perfect. It was perfect. Perfect length. It was absolutely perfect. We see a 90-minute movie. And it was like perfect length for that movie. That movie was perfect at 90 minutes. 5 more minutes would have been too long. 5 less minutes would have been too short. So like, I really don't have any opinion on the length of the movie because I haven't seen it yet. Now, once I see Black Panther 2, I will then be sure to have an opinion about the runtime. Then I will be sure to have an opinion about the runtime. But until I see it, there's no point in speculating that it's going to drag. Well, for all we know, it's going to be too short for what it is. Every movie has its own optimal runtime, whether that's 2 hours and 45 minutes or 90 minutes. And we'll never know until we see the movie. So that's kind of my thought on that. Let's see. Disney Freak 309 writes, John, did you get a chance to check out Bros yet? It was fantastic. I've heard nothing but good things about Bros, but I will not see this movie. And it's unfortunate. And I'm not saying I will not see the movie out of any kind of principle. It's just that I'm just being honest, I have lost any interest in seeing it. Like, I didn't make a choice to lose interest in seeing it. Here's the thing about Bros. I saw the first big presentation for Bros with a big preview of it at CinemaCon. And frankly, I didn't think it looked funny. It actually looked very much not funny. And then when the trailers came out for it, I again thought, and I'm a big Billy Eichner fan. Like, I like him a lot. But I saw the trailers for Bros and I'm like, this doesn't look funny. But then the reviews started coming out. And then some of my own staff went to go see it. And all the reviews and everybody I know who saw it all said it was great. So my interest starts to rise to see it. But since then, I saw Billy Eichner basically come out and say that the reason the movie failed at the box office, at any rate, the reason why the movie had a terrible, flopped at the box office was because straight America didn't go see it. And then he said, you'll go to see this unless you're homophobic. And so you're blaming the audience for your thing. Really, the blame for the box office failure of this movie doesn't lie with the terrible marketing. You're blaming the audience. And I remember my own assistant, Taylor, who is gay, and many of you guys know that. But I remember Taylor came in one morning into the office and we were talking about the statements that Billy Eichner had made. And especially when Billy Eichner said, straight America didn't come out to support it. And Taylor said, gay America didn't come out to support it. And I'm like, yeah. So there was that one thing. And then I can't remember the name of the guy. But one of the stars of Bros, I don't know if you guys saw this, just came out and attacked Brendan Fraser for being in The Whale. And I'm just like, I did not make a choice. When you see a trailer, you don't make a choice. Your mind, your body, you just tells you if you're interested or not. You don't decide to be interested. You either are interested or you're not. And I wasn't interested in Bros. Then I heard all the reviews and I started to get interested in Bros. And then once everything from Billy Eichner and this other star of the movie coming out and attacking Brendan Fraser, all my interest disappeared. My interest just was gone. I just lost it. I didn't make a choice that I don't want to see this movie now. It's just like, oh yeah, I realized I'm right back to not having any interest to going to see in this movie. And that may not be fair. That might not be a fair thing. But it is what it is. That really turned me off. Those two separate situations. So I have not seen Bros, and I'm now probably not going to see Bros. I will probably at some point when it comes out on home video, I will probably, because again, I am an Eichner fan. Again, I didn't like his statements, but I'm still a fan of his. I think he's a very, very entertaining guy. So I will probably check it out once it comes on home video, but I'm just, those statements just kind of turn me off. So I'm probably not going to go see it on that level because of that. let's see. Spencer Smothers saying, did you get hit with the YouTube monetization bug today? I don't know what that means. I haven't seen any problems in my YouTube or my YouTube studio, if that's what you're referring to. I don't know if some other users were having some problems. I'm not sure about that. Let's see here. Where are we at? Steve James is saying they're criticizing Brendan Fraser for being a straight actor playing a gay role. Yeah, again, and to me, that is the most idiotic thing in the world. I just think anytime, and I don't just mean about, when I say that, I don't saying that the most idiotic thing in the world is about a gay actor complaining about a non-gay actor getting a gay role. I mean, it's the most idiotic thing in the world when I hear anybody complaining that an actor in a role isn't the thing that they are playing in the role. So I don't know if they do a movie about an NFL football team. Are they supposed to go out and get former NFL players to to star in the movie and play in the role? Do you think, one of my favorite movies of the last, 20 years is Mystery Alaska, the hockey movie with Russell Crowe, and Mike Myers is in it too. I love that movie. But should we complain that Russell Crowe wasn't an NHL hockey player? Well, he wasn't an NHL hockey player. He doesn't actually know what it is to be an NHL hockey player. No, listen, the job of an actor is to pretend to be something that they are not. The job of a performer and an actor is to pretend to be something they are not. Like for Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List, should they have gone out and only gotten actual Nazis to play Nazis in Schindler's List? No, that's stupid. Actors play people that they are not in real life. And, I remember I was reading this comment from the guy in Bros saying, well, Brendan Fraser is playing a fat gay man. And I guess this actor identifies himself as being fat. So he says, I'm a fat gay man. There's not a lot of roles for me. Well, guess what? As an actor, no roles. You are not entitled to any roles. No actor is entitled to any role. And if I go watch, guess what? Sean Penn is not gay. But when I saw Salt, the power of the message of that guy's life, even though Sean Penn himself, as a person, is gay, I did not see Sean Penn on the screen. I saw this character that was brought to life in this powerful movie that made an impact on me and millions of other people who saw it. You're not owed anything. Nobody is. But so yeah, again, that's just another one of the things that really kind of turned me off. But again, that's just me. Oh, sorry. Nikita's pointing out, not Milk. Milk is a totally different movie. Salt. Did I say? I think I said Milk. Yeah, not Milk, Salt. Thank you. Yes. Or not Salt, Milk. I'm getting it reversed. Not Salt, Milk. I think Salt is an Angelina Jolie one. I think that was an Angelina Jolie movie. Yeah, so sorry. I got the titles mixed up there. Thank you, Nikita, for pointing that out in the live chat. Let's see here. Rocket Punk Productions writes, what is your most wanted cameo in Secret Wars and or Deadpool 3? From one Canadian to another, love your work. Thank you so much, Rocket. Listen, I'm not a big fan of cameos. I only really appreciate a cameo if there is a narrative purpose for it being there. Right? If there is a functional narrative purpose for it being there, great. Other than that, hey, if a fun little cameo happens and it creates a funny moment, great. But I don't go into a movie hoping for cameos. You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of people do, and that's great. I'm not trying to poo-poo on anybody what people like seeing pop up in their movies, but you're asking me. So I'll tell you, I don't really care a lot about cameos unless it fulfills a narrative purpose. Other than that, if a quick little cameo happens and it makes me chuckle for a second, great. But cameos don't make a movie better or worse, right? Like they're just quick little moments in a movie. And if they can be used to further a story, great. So the answer to your question is I'm not going in hoping for any cameos, to be honest with you. If they throw some in, great. If they don't, they don't. But Deadpool 3 is either going to be good or not good. And it's not going to be made good because of a cameo. And it's not going to be bad because of a lack of a cameo. You know what I'm saying? So that's just kind of my take on it at any rate. All right. Thanks for that. All right, let's see here. Let's see. The Antagonistic Anonymous writes, John, is moving Black Panther 2 premiere date up a good sign for the film? I didn't know they did move it up. It's been moved a week, but I'm afraid that that if the doctor is there, it will be quickly leaked. But I'm afraid if I'm not quite sure what that means. Let me actually go over and take a peek at something. I did not hear about, was that news that came out today? That Black Panther got moved? I'm looking at I'm not seeing that news. Yeah, then again, I haven't been really paying attention, so I'm not really sure. But if it moves, listen, when a movie moves 6 weeks or less, either up or back, I don't really think it means anything, but probably a logistical thing. So I don't think moving it up is a good sign. Just like I don't think if they moved it back by a week or two is a bad sign either. Like once you start moving things like 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 24 weeks or something like that, that's when I start to pay a little bit more attention. But if it did indeed move 1 week, then that's unfortunate. Again, I'm not quite sure what you mean if the doctor is there. So yeah, anyway. Let's see. Jacob writes, do you think Nick Fury would remember who Spider-Man is since he wasn't on Earth when the spell was made in No Way Home? That's not a bad question. Huh. My guess is he won't, because I don't know that the spell would have a physical range limitation. So, because apparently the spell even affected other dimensions. Because remember, it's all these characters who knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man were able to come into the dimension. So it had to take effect outside of their dimension as well, if I'm remembering it right. Anyway, so with that in mind, my guess is that Nick Fury just being off-world won't make any difference. But that's a fascinating question. I'll be curious to see how they handle that, because maybe they will say he's the one guy who remembers. I don't know. It's a great question. Let's see. H7 says, any expectations for Venom 3? Listen, I don't care what anybody else says. I love the Venom franchise. I didn't think Venom 2 was as good as Venom 1, but I still really liked Venom 2. I had a very, very good time with Venom 2. So, yeah, I have very high expectations for Venom 3. At least I hope it turns out to be good. Maybe. Let's see here. Let's see. William Cote writes, an article came out that Deadpool actor TJ Miller says that he will never work with Ryan Reynolds again. It's weird that he hates me. I mean, good for TJ Miller. TJ Miller's had a lot. Listen, I have met TJ Miller. TJ Miller is really quite cool when I've had a chance to get together with him. But TJ Miller's had his own problems, and if those problems, I remember going into Deadpool 2, there was talks about, remember, TJ Miller got himself into a bunch of trouble. And there was talks going into Deadpool 2 about them editing TJ Miller out of the movie. Do you guys remember that? There was talk about them removing TJ Miller out of Deadpool 2 or something along those lines. And I don't think they did anything, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if as a result of that, Ryan Reynolds probably said, I can't work with TJ anymore. So, I mean, really, the big question becomes, who cares if TJ Miller? And again, I am not somebody who dislikes TJ Miller. Let me be very clear on that. He was very nice to me when I had a chance to meet him. But notwithstanding that, who cares if TJ Miller says he'll never work with Ryan Reynolds again? That's like me saying, I refuse to ever do a movie with Daniel Day-Lewis. Woohoo! John Campea says he'll never do a movie with Daniel Day-Lewis. And why should anybody care? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying TJ Miller is as insignificant as I am. I'm not saying that, but it's kind of like, who cares what TJ Miller says? And again, I say that as a guy who's really, really nice to me. Let's see. Where are we at here? A bunch of people ask me if I've seen Amsterdam. We've talked about that many times already in today's show. I've decided not to go see Amsterdam because I don't want to be disappointed. Guys, please don't spam the thing. If I haven't picked your question, please don't pick it and just decide to copy and paste it in 55 times. That would be greatly appreciated. Okay. yeah. All right. Okay. That'll do it, guys. I mean, we've been going for 2.5 hours now, and my voice is pretty much going out on me, and I think my wife will be home any moment now, so I'm just going to cut off the live stream now. Guys, that'll do it for this installment of After Dark. Thank you so much for being here and joining me tonight as we just hung out and talked about movies. It's a fun way to spend a Saturday evening. Big special thank you to all of you guys who sent in the super chats. Number one, because you gave us really fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported our channel by sending them in. So myself, on behalf of everybody who works with me on the channel, we all thank you so much, guys, for supporting the content that you enjoy watching. So we appreciate that very much. And thank you to all you guys in the live chat for not only sending in questions, but talking amongst yourselves and hanging out here with me tonight. I greatly appreciate that very much. Remember, guys, to help the channel out, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. Hey, why don't you consider becoming a channel member, becoming one of our core supporters? Just click a thumbs up button. Just go through our playlist and start clicking thumbs up buttons on that. All that kind of stuff helps our channel out a great deal. So thank you to everybody for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, I don't know if we're going to do a live stream tomorrow. I was thinking about doing a live stream tomorrow, but there's a lot going on. Sunday, NFL football. We got House of the Dragon. Yeah, I probably won't do one tomorrow. So I will see you guys again on Monday, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.